Yu Xiaozhang's hair stood on end, his entire body tensing as the dagger gleamed ominously in his vision. He tried to dodge, but his meager strength left him paralyzed in the face of imminent death. The blade seemed to grow larger as it neared, and in that instant, memories of a similar brush with death 2 decades ago surged to the forefront of his mind.
Clang!
Sparks erupted as 2 Soul Kings reacted just in time, intercepting the fatal strike with their weapons. Enemy attack! Protect the master, one of them shouted, their voices ringing with urgency. The pair, armed with gleaming long blades, flanked Yu Xiaozhang and scanned the area with heightened vigilance. The surroundings, a barren desert littered with jagged rocks and sparse vegetation, offered the perfect camouflage for an ambush. Each boulder seemed to taunt them, promising hidden threats in the shadows. "Show yourself, coward," roared one of the Soul Kings, his sharp gaze darting across the rocky terrain. The isolation of the Heaven Do Empire's border, devoid of reinforcements or watchtowers, left the 2 guards cold with dread. At Soul King level strength, barely mid-tier in the grand hierarchy of Soul Masters, they were painfully aware of their limitations. Yu Xiaozhang, now regaining his composure, clenched his fists in frustration. He had always prided himself on living a virtuous life, dedicating himself to educating the next generation of Soul Masters. Why would anyone hold a grudge so deep as to try and assassinate him here, of all places? "Teacher, it's been a long time." A voice, deep yet familiar, echoed from behind a cluster of rocks. A figure stepped forward, bathed in shadow, wearing a flowing blue robe and a mask obscuring half his face. At his waist hung the 24 moonlit bridges, a belt Yu Xiaozhang instantly recognized. His pupils shrank in shock. "Xiao San, why are you here?" The resemblance was uncanny. The belt had been a parting gift from Yu Xiaozhang to Tang San during their time at Duel Academy. The figure before him matched Tang San's build and carried himself with similar poise. The 2 Soul Kings, confused, exchanged wary glances. Tang San was widely regarded as an ally, a prodigious talent who had made waves during the Soul Master Tournament. Why would he attack his own mentor? "Why am I here?" the masked figure said, his voice laced with malice. "Naturally, to kill you." It was Chen Xien. Through a combination of mimicry and a rudimentary shape-shifting technique, he had adopted Tang San's likeness. The mask concealed the finer inconsistencies in his appearance, completing the illusion. Yu Xiaozhang's eyes narrowed. Something felt off. His mind raced as he scrutinized the figure. Suddenly, realization struck like a bolt of lightning. "No, you're not Xiao San. Who are you?" Chen Xien chuckled, his voice rich with mockery. "Oh, my dear teacher, has age dulled your senses? Have you truly forgotten your beloved disciple so easily?" The 2 Soul Kings tensed, unsure whether to intervene. The tension between the supposed master and disciple hinted at a deep fracture in their relationship. Yu Xiaozhang's memories darted back to the Soul Master qualifying matches weeks ago when Chen Xien had issued a chilling threat. Asterisk, watch your back, teacher, or you might end up in a wheelchair. Asterisk. Chen Xien. Yu Xiaozhang growled, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. "I knew it. It's you." Rage replaced fear as Yu Xiaozhang took a bold step forward, pointing an accusatory finger. "You dare show such disrespect to your teacher? Have you lost your mind? Attempting murder, of all things. You're nothing but a demon, devoid of humanity." Chen Xien laughed coldly. "Teacher, your words are as pompous as ever. Do you truly believe you'll make it back to Shrek Academy?" The 2 Soul Kings, realizing the charade, stepped forward, their weapons at the ready. Yu Xiaozhang, emboldened by their presence, sneered. "Chen Xien, you underestimate me. These guards are more than enough to deal with you. You'll pay for your insolence." Chen Xien smirked, unfazed. Drawing a cyan gold spear from his storage ring, he advanced slowly, his movements deliberate and calculated. "Naive as always, teacher. Your time is up." The 2 guards moved into position, one stepping forward to intercept Chen Xien while the other prepared to retreat with Yu Xiaozhang. With a flick of his wrist, Chen Xien formed a series of hand seals. Water style. Hidden mist jutsu. From the parched desert ground, an unnatural mist began to rise, spreading rapidly and blanketing the area in a dense fog. Visibility dropped to nearly zero, leaving the guards disoriented. "What is this sorcery?" one of the Soul Kings exclaimed, his voice betraying his unease. The larger of the two guards activated his martial spirit, summoning the form of a ferocious brown bear. 5 soul rings, yellow, yellow, purple, purple, and black, shone brightly in the mist, amplifying his strength. "No matter your tricks, Tang San, you're no match for me," he bellowed, charging forward with his blade. Chen Xien's Sharingan glinted faintly under the mask, allowing him to see clearly through the fog. His spear crackled with lightning as he sidestepped the Soul King's attack, countering with a swift thrust.
Clang!
The clash sent the larger Soul King stumbling back, his arm numb from the impact. His expression darkened. If that strike had landed cleanly, he'd have been skewered on the spot. Chen Xien twirled his spear, his tone icy. "It's over." The Soul King snarled, preparing to retaliate, but before he could act, water surged around him, forming a sphere that encased his entire body. "What is this?" the guard yelled, struggling in vain as the water immobilized him. "Water style. Water prison jutsu," Chen Xien said, his voice devoid of emotion. The sphere shimmered with an unyielding pressure, sealing the Soul King's movements and soul power. Yu Xiaozhang's remaining guard faltered, realizing the dire situation. The master they had sworn to protect was now utterly defenseless against Chen Xien. "You won't escape this time, teacher," Chen Xien declared, his spear poised for the final strike. The Soul King felt an icy chill run down his spine. A moment ago, Tang San had been directly in front of him. How had he suddenly appeared behind? Before he could process the impossibility, a large water sphere formed around him. Though slow-moving, it ensnared him completely, leaving no room for escape. The water tightened, trapping him in its suffocating grip. His movement stilled, and his soul power drained away as if he were submerged in a swamp. Every struggle was futile. Water release. Water prison technique. Chen Xien approached slowly, his cyan gold spear resting on his shoulder. He smirked as he observed the Soul King struggling within the water sphere. "This mist doesn't just obscure your vision, it dulls your senses and perception. From the moment you entered it, you were already in my trap," Chen Xien said coldly. "Why are there 2 Tang Sans?" the Soul King gasped, his voice trembling. His mind spun, grappling with the sight of what seemed to be identical copies of the same person. Could one be a clone? Standing before him, Chen Xien's water clone mirrored Tang San's appearance perfectly, maintaining the illusion. "I led you into this trap from the beginning," Chen Xien explained indifferently. He left his clone to maintain the water prison, knowing the opponent was already neutralized. The mist had allowed him to use a portion of his soul power to summon the water clone, placing it in a blind spot between their lines of sight. Though the technique drained his reserves, it was the quickest way to gain the upper hand. 2 minutes left, he murmured to himself. More than enough. Exiting the mist, Chen Xien spotted Yu Xiaozhang and the second Soul King just beyond its edge. The tall, burly guard was forming hand seals, preparing to engage. "Your brother is already defeated," Chen Xien announced, his voice calm but menacing. Yu Xiaozhang scoffed, refusing to believe it. A mere soul ancestor at the 41st level defeating a Soul King at 56th? Don't flatter yourself. Even Tang San wouldn't dare make such a claim. The remaining Soul King's face, however, turned ashen. His connection to his brother had vanished, leaving only an empty void. "You're not my match," Chen Xien said, pointing his spear at the Soul King. "I'm giving you a chance. Leave now or go fetch reinforcements. My target isn't you." The Soul King's eyes burned with rage. "Dream on. Master Yu is an honored figure of the Heaven Do Empire and our employer. I will protect him, even at the cost of my life." Yu Xiaozhang waved dismissively. "Don't listen to his bluff. Together, we'll take him down." Summoning his beast spirit, Yu Xiaojing revealed a small, dog-like creature that radiated an intimidating aura. He smirked, his disdain for Chen Xien evident. "You overestimate yourself," Chen Xien replied, his tone icy. Yu Xiaojing sneered. "Arrogant brat. Against true experts, cheap tricks like yours are meaningless. Do you think you can compete with the Shrek Seven Devils? Your league's beneath them." Chen Xien's expression remained calm, his smirk deepening. "You think you've seen everything I'm capable of? How naive. Let me educate you." With a flicker of a Sharingan, the three tomos spun rapidly, merging into a new form, the Mangekyo Sharingan. Yu Xiaojing's expression faltered as an oppressive aura filled the air. What is that?" he stammered, sweat dripping from his brow. "Master, fall back," the Soul King shouted, stepping between Yu Xiaojing and Chen Xien. But Chen Xien moved faster. Lightning sparked at his feet as he transformed into a streak of light, crossing the 20-meter distance in an instant. "I see you," the Soul King growled, his reflexes honed as a speed-type fighter. He swung his glowing blade, intercepting Chen Xien's charge. The clash of blade and spear created a deafening clang. Sparks flew as the two weapons collided, the sheer force of the impact reverberating through the air. The Soul King gritted his teeth as his arm trembled under the strain. Chen Xien's strength was greater than expected, but it wasn't overwhelming. He smirked, believing victory was within reach. Then it happened. Space freeze. The Soul King froze mid-swing, his movements suspended as if time itself had stopped. Yu Xiaojing, dagger in hand, found himself similarly immobilized, his blade mere inches from Chen Xien's chest. What is this?" Yu Xiaojing shouted, his voice panicked. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't move. Chen Xien stepped forward, unhurried. With a swift kick, he sent Yu Xiaojing flying. Bang! The kick landed squarely on Yu Xiaojing's chest, shattering ribs and sending him hurtling into a nearby boulder. Blood spurted from his mouth as he crumpled to the ground, writhing in pain. The Soul King's rage erupted as the space freeze ended. He roared, unleashing his soul power in a desperate attack. But Chen Xien was ready. With a thrust of his cyan gold spear, he pierced the Soul King's chest. The guard froze, his eyes wide in disbelief, before collapsing to the ground in a pool of blood. Chen Xien flicked his spear, scattering the blood from its tip. His gaze shifted to Yu Xiaojing, who was clutching his broken chest, trembling in pain and fury. "How would you like to die, master?" Chen Xien asked, his voice cold and unyielding. Yu Xiaojing glared at him with a mix of fear and defiance. You're a wicked, ungrateful demon. When I return to Shrek Academy, I'll ensure you're expelled forever." Chen Xien chuckled, his spear poised for the final blow. "Return to Shrek? Master, you seem to be under the illusion that you're leaving this desert alive."
Hey, welcome to another audiobook on Quantum Audiobooks. Sorry to disturb you, but if you enjoy it, please make sure to subscribe. It motivates me to create more audiobooks like this. Also, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts about this novel audiobook in the comments below.
Chen Xien shook the spear in his hand, flinging off the blood. He dragged his azure gold spear and walked step by step toward Yu Xiaojing, who was leaning against a boulder. "Master, I've heard you're a prophet. Was this situation part of your calculations as well?" he said with a chilling smile. Yu Xiaojing was covered in blood, his mouth frothing as the intense pain twisted his face into a grimace. His eyes were ablaze with fury as he glared at Chen Xien. If looks could kill, Chen Xien would have died 1,000 times over. "Chen Xien, even if you kneel and beg me now, Yu Xiaojing, will never forgive you for what you've done today. Mark my words, you will be the first formal student ever expelled from Shrek Academy." Chen Xien chuckled coldly, his face full of disdain. At this point, did such threats even matter? If he truly cared, would he have acted in such a remote and desolate place where no one would know it was him? Shaking his head, Chen Xien regarded Yu Xiaojing with an air of mockery. "Yu Xiaojing, if you're truly terrified, you could try begging me. Maybe I'll consider leaving you with a whole corpse." Rubbish. Yu Xiaogong's face turned livid, his voice trembling as he spat out his defiance. But deep inside, fear had already gripped him. The oppressive sense of death hung over him like a shadow. As a renowned theorist, Yu Xiaogang wasn't foolish enough to misjudge the situation. His intellect told him to maintain composure and attempt to intimidate Chen Xien, hoping to exploit his immaturity and provoke hesitation. With Chen Xien and the others' strength, they'll surely reach the finals. You, Chen Xien, had the chance to bask in fame under Shrek's banner, but you chose to rebel and attack your teacher. You are a disgrace to Shrek Academy. Yu Xiaogang straightened his back, pointing an accusing finger at Chen Xien. His stern expression gradually morphed into a sly smile, as though he had regained control of the situation. But then, slash, blood splattered. A finger fell to the ground, staining the yellow sand red. Ah! Yu Xiaogang let out a pig-like scream, his face twisting in agony. Physical pain and humiliation shattered his facade of composure. His lofty demeanor, his condescending finger-pointing, all of it had been reduced to a joke. Yu Xiaogang roared in fury, his face contorted with madness as he lunged at Chen Xien like a rabid beast, ignoring the pain in his body. Rabid dog, Chen Xien muttered coldly. Without hesitation, he thrust his spear forward. Thud! The spear pierced Yu Xiaogang's shoulder, sending him flying backward until he slammed into the boulder again. Blood sprayed everywhere, and the sound of flesh ripping was accompanied by a heart-wrenching scream. Yu Xiaogang hung limply against the rock, pinned in place by the azure gold spear. His disheveled appearance was a far cry from his former dignity. Chen Xien walked forward, his expression icy. If you beg me now, I might grant you a complete corpse. Yu Xiaogang's hatred-filled eyes stared at Chen Xien as he gritted his teeth. His body trembled with a mixture of pain and rage. But his rationality had long been obliterated, leaving behind only raw emotion. Seems like you've gone mad, Chen Xien said indifferently as he drew a short blade from his waist. Slash, slash, slash. The blade moved so quickly that it blurred. Blood sprayed as Chen Xien carved chunks of flesh from Yu Xiaogang's body, his arms, thighs, and abdomen until the ground beneath them was soaked red. Arg! Yu Xiaogang screamed, his voice tearing through the air as his body convulsed in agony. The searing pain finally broke him. His wild demeanor gave way to a trembling figure barely clinging to consciousness. With tears in his eyes and blood staining his lips, he whispered, spare me. I was wrong. Chen Xien raised an eyebrow, surprised by the sudden surrender. So, the mighty master can bow his head after all. I expected you to remain stubborn until the end. With a chilling smile, Chen Xien leaned in. Master, you and I are alike, we both hold grudges. But I'm more patient than you. And now that you've begged, I suppose I should honor my promise. With that, Chen Xian's blade flashed again. Snap! He severed Yu Xiaogang's tendons in both arms and legs, ensuring that the master would live a life of utter humiliation, unable to ever recover. You should have watched your step when you left the arena, Chen Xien muttered, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Turning away, he glanced at the horizon and muttered to himself, time's almost up. The faint shimmer of a shadow clone flickered at his side. Meanwhile, in the distance, a spirit king returned to find his injured brother lying in a pool of blood. The rage in his eyes burned like an inferno. Remember this, Tang-san. If I don't kill you, I'm no longer human. Shrek Academy. At the rear mountain, Chen Xien was training by the river, developing a new spirit ability. Suddenly, he froze, his face shifting as a flood of memories and information surged into his mind. When his shadow clone dissipated, everything it had experienced was transmitted back to him. Used my pupil technique once, huh? After processing the memories, Chen Xien was a little surprised. Considering the situation and time constraints, it made sense. Fortunately, as long as he didn't use the pupil technique against spirit saints, spirit Duelos, or titled Duelos, the energy consumption wasn't too great. Chen Xien frowned slightly. Against spirit masters of the same rank, his Mangekyo Sherinon could be used 10 times or more. However, when challenging higher ranks, the number was halved at most, 2 or 3 uses before blindness would set in. It really is 1 less use each time, he sighed. If only he had infinite ocular power, he wouldn't need to worry about such limitations. Previously, he had unlocked Hashirama's cells. With them, even if he went blind, his sight and ocular power could be restored. However, while Hashirama's cells had many benefits, their risks were immense. Injecting them into his body could potentially turn him into a tree, leading to his demise. Unless it was a life or death situation, he wouldn't risk it. The stakes were far too high. As for Yu Xiaogang's death, word would spread soon. Chen Xien couldn't predict how Shrek Academy would react. The next day, Chen Xien arrived as promised at the Crown Prince's East Palace to meet Shrek Academy alone. Brother Chen, you came after all, Shrek Academy greeted. His handsome and elegant demeanor matched with freshly brewed tea, prepared in anticipation of the meeting. The palace had a few halls and chambers, its design resembling ancient architecture. Upon entering, Chen Xien swept his gaze around the room. There was no one else present, not even palace maids. It was evident that Shrek Academy had deliberately dismissed them. This setup. Is he planning something against me? Having suffered once before, Chen Xien couldn't help but be cautious. Women could be cunning and ruthless, after all. A man needed to protect himself when out in the world. Brother Chen, no need to be tense. Sit down and have some tea, Shrek Academy said with a gentle smile. Chen Xien glanced at the teacup. The tea's clear green hue seemed harmless, without any suspicious substances visible. Still, having been traumatized before, Chen Xien wasn't about to touch that tea. Unbothered, Shrek Academy continued, Brother Chen, you are outstanding, exceptionally talented, and possess a broad vision, exactly the kind of individual the Empire needs. On behalf of my father, I welcome you to join us. He stood up and extended a hand, slender and fair, more delicate than most women's hands. Chen Xien rose as well, shaking hands briefly while exchanging pleasantries. Not one to beat around the bush, Chen Xien got straight to the point. Your Highness, am I joining the Empire or your faction? The words caused Shrek Academy's eyes to flash coldly for a brief moment, his expression stiffening. However, his excellent self-control quickly restored his composure, leaving no evidence of discomfort. Brother Chen, what do you mean by that? Shrek Academy asked with a faint smile, sipping his tea as he observed Chen Xien. Shrek Academy didn't believe this young man could see through his disguise. The unique traits of his seraphim martial spirit, combined with the complete angelic god spirit bones, allowed him to replicate Shrek Academy's appearance flawlessly. This wasn't an illusion or mimicry, it was entirely real. Even his grandfather, Qian Daolio, an ultimate Douluo, hadn't noticed anything amiss. Just what the words imply, Chen Xien replied ambiguously, testing the waters. While Chen Xien and Tang San both possessed strong spiritual power, neither could detect Qian Rongxiu's disguise. Chen Xian's goal was simple, to determine if Qian Rongxiu and that extraordinarily beautiful woman were the same person or merely connected, and whether this was all an intentional ploy to antagonize him. What gave it away? Shrek Academy asked nonchalantly, sipping his tea without concern. Chen Xian's sharp gaze caught a fleeting coldness deep in Shrek Academy's eyes. For now, Chen Xien wasn't foolish enough to expose Shrek Academy as Qian Rongxiu. Doing so offered no advantage. Shrek Academy remained supremely confident that no one could uncover his true identity. He assumed Chen Xien was alluding to the crown prince's private ambitions instead. Calm and composed, Shrek Academy said, Brother Chen, from your tone, it seems you're dissatisfied with the empire. Or perhaps you have greater ambitions. Chen Xien replied, Indeed, while the Heaven Do Empire appears glorious on the surface, that light comes at the cost of its people. Commoners live in hardship, and in this regard, the empire falls far short of the Spirit Hall. Since Shrek Academy had raised the topic, Chen Xien offered his honest assessment. This wasn't baseless criticism. It was the reality and the Achilles heel of both the Star Luo and Heaven Do empires, the poverty of their commoners. Unable to awaken their martial spirits, commoners with spirit power lacked the opportunity to become spirit masters. Even those who succeeded received no financial support. Over time, the spirit master population dwindled, leaving the empire's collapse a matter of time. In contrast, Spirit Hall provided free martial spirit awakenings and offered monthly stipends to spirit masters, explaining why their ranks were the strongest on the continent. Brother Chen, you hold Spirit Hall in high regard, Shrek Academy remarked with a playful smile. But are you aware that Spirit Hall demands annual financial tributes from the empires and kingdoms? Of course. The funds Spirit Hall allocates to spirit master stipends come from the empires and kingdoms. I see no issue with that, Chen Xien replied, openly siding with Spirit Hall. At this point, Shrek Academy understood clearly, Chen Xien might physically be in the Heaven Do Empire, but his heart was with Spirit Hall. The woman who favored this genius certainly had good judgment. Brother Chen, it seems you despise the Emperor's actions. Are you aware that such sentiments border on treason? Shrek Academy smiled faintly, studying Chen Xian's expression. Your Highness, we're on the same side. Since you're inviting me to join the Empire on your behalf, let's not beat around the bush, Chen Xien replied, preferring directness over aristocratic subtlety. Shrek Academy chuckled. Brother Chen, I admire your straightforwardness. You suit my tastes. He had already planned to recruit Chen Xien as a trusted subordinate. A talent like this wasn't something he'd let slip away. One last question, why do you wish to rebel? Shrek Academy asked, his eyes glinting with curiosity. Chen Xien swept his sleeve dramatically and declared, a true man born under the heavens cannot remain long in servitude. Shrek Academy's eye twitched at the audacity. This kid's ambition was outrageous. He actually dared to voice his desire to become Emperor of Heaven Do in front of the Crown Prince himself. By noon, Chen Xien and Qian Rongxiu reached an understanding. Leaving the East Palace, Chen Xien returned to Shrek Academy. For now, all his entanglements in Heaven Do were resolved. During his absence, Shrek Academy would ensure his sister's safety. Back at the academy, Chen Xien headed to the rear mountain to continue his training. As he passed through a forest, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. Xiao. In his line of sight, Lu Erlong was leading Xiao out of the academy and toward the rear mountain. Something seemed off. Xiao looked uncharacteristically subdued, her head down and expression heavy with worry. Chen Xien concealed his aura and decided to follow, curious about what was happening. Keeping a distance of about 30 meters, he hid behind a large tree. What he overheard left him utterly stunned, his eyes wide with shock. His entire body tensed as his mind reeled from the explosive revelation. Lu Erlong's expression was grim, her eyes filled with a mix of anger and frustration. Her trembling finger pointed at Xiao. Xiao, tell me the truth. Is the child in your belly Tang San's? Since that day, 2 months had passed, and some things could no longer be hidden. Xiao Wu was slender, with a thin waist, but her belly was growing day by day, inevitably raising suspicions. Lu Erlong, being a woman, though she had not personally experienced motherhood, was highly sensitive in this regard due to her extensive life experiences. The vibrant little life growing inside Xiao Wu could never escape the awareness of a soul saint like Lu Erlong. Having no daughter of her own, Lu Erlong had long regarded this sweet and obedient girl as her own. Xiao Wu, be honest with me. Is this child Tang San's? She asked, both furious and regretful. Such potential wasted. When she first learned of the situation, she was so angry that she almost had a heart attack. Xiao Wu's face turned odd. She kept her head down, stammering for a long time without saying a word. A bad feeling arose in Lu Erlong's heart. Xiao Wu, is the child in your belly Tang San's? She grabbed Xiao Wu by the shoulders, her expression agitated, unable to suppress her emotions. They had known each other for so long, and at this age, when love between men and women could easily flare up, if the child was born of their love, a bit of scolding would be enough. But Xiao Wu avoided eye contact, looking scared, not daring to meet Lu Erlong's piercing gaze. Seeing her reaction, Lu Erlong suddenly felt as if all the strength had drained from her body. She stumbled back a few steps, her heart sinking. You. She clutched her chest, feeling as if she was about to have a heart attack, her blood pressure skyrocketing. This silence and Xiao Wu's attitude unmistakably conveyed that the child was not Tang San's. Lu Erlong was utterly disappointed in Xiao Wu. She wanted to curse her out. How could she be so reckless? Such an obedient girl, how could she do something so shameless? Xiao Wu lowered her head, her eyes already moist. She was deeply upset, filled with guilt toward Tang San. But what was done, and it was irreversible. In the distance, Chen Xien had already broken out in a cold sweat, feeling as if a thunderbolt had struck him from a clear sky, leaving him unable to calm down for a long time. The worst-case scenario had happened, things were unfolding in the worst possible direction. Chen Xien was dazed, lost in thought, overwhelmed with emotions, and on the verge of tears. His mind was in complete turmoil. Was this a one-shot deal, or perhaps more than one? Either way, it was explosive. At just over 16, he hadn't even explored the world or seen the vast landscapes, yet now he might have to step into the role of a father and husband prematurely? In the small grove, Lu Erlong was heartbroken, her expression one of exasperation. The girl she treated like a daughter had turned into someone she could no longer recognize. Xiao Wu's mysterious pregnancy was already hard for her to accept, but to learn that the child belonged to someone else, an unknown man, felt like a thunderclap, shaking her to the core. Xiao Wu, I'm asking you one last time, whose child is this? Lu Erlong's eyes were bloodshot. She was on the verge of breaking down. I can't say. Xiao Wu's eyes were red, her hands gripping the hem of her dress so tightly that her knuckles turned white. She hesitated for a long time but refused to reveal Chen Xien's name. Her body trembled slightly, every part of her felt the searing pain. She was the one who was suffering the most. How could she not wish the child belonged to Tang San? Xiao Wu bit her lip, clenching her mouth shut. No matter how much Lu Erlong pressed her, she would never reveal Chen Xien's name. That pain was hers alone to bear, she didn't want more people to know. Lu Erlong's chest heaved, her face turning red and purple from anger. She was about to lose it. If it had been anyone else, she would have lectured them harshly by now. Xiao Wu, do you still love Tang San? Lu Erlong asked. Hearing this, Xiao Wu opened her mouth but quickly shut it again. She had wanted to declare her love wholeheartedly, but the memory of Tang San kissing Xiao Wu in the grove outside flashed in her mind, a kiss that lasted over 2 minutes. She hesitated. Unlike before, she couldn't say it firmly. With Chen Xien and Xiao Wu in the picture, her feelings for Tang San were no longer pure. After a long pause, she could only manage to say, I don't know. Lu Erlong, however, misunderstood this as Xiao Wu being afraid of her scolding and assumed she had fallen for someone else. In reality, her indecision had already revealed the problem. Lu Erlong sighed deeply, her eyes full of disappointment. But Xiao Wu was still the daughter she had just recognized, and she didn't want this sweet girl to continue down this path. Her face became stern, and she looked at Xiao Wu with severity. Before Tang San finds out, get rid of the child, and you two can go back to how things were. After much thought, only Flender knew about this. The best solution was to terminate the pregnancy and pretend nothing had happened. No. Upon hearing this, Xiao Wu immediately exploded, screaming in protest. Lu Erlong's words had touched her deepest nerve, igniting her defiance. This baby is my flesh and blood, it already has life. I can't do such a thing. Even if the baby doesn't have a father, I will still raise it. Her small face turned red as she grew more agitated, filled with resistance. Xiao Wu, stop being stubborn. This won't be good for anyone. What about Tang San? Lu Erlong was so furious that her hands trembled. Anyone else would have been scolded harshly by now. At the mention of Tang San, Xiao Wu's attitude softened. Her eyes filled with pain as she struggled intensely between her baby and Tang San. On one side was the man she loved, and on the other was her own child. Her heart ached as if it was being torn apart, and she truly didn't know what to do. I don't know. I know this baby is my own flesh and blood. The baby must be okay. Finally, Xiao Wu couldn't hold back her tears any longer, and they flowed freely from her eyes. But her determination was clear. She would put the child's life first. Even if it meant parting ways with Tang San, she would not regret it. Chen Xien couldn't take it anymore. He turned and fled, leaving the mountainside and heading back to the academy. He wasn't running away but feared that if he stayed, he would lose control and Lu Erlong and Xiao Wu would discover the truth. Not long after, Lu Erlong and Xiao Wu also left the mountainside and returned to Shrek Academy. Chen Xien left first, so he didn't know what the two talked about after, but one thing was clear, Lu Erlong had not exposed Xiao Wu's pregnancy. Instead, she helped cover it up, which surprised him. Chen Xien knew it wouldn't stay hidden for long. Xiao Wu's growing belly was becoming more noticeable, and sooner or later, everyone, including Chen Xien, would find out. Moreover, it was highly likely that her close friends, Zhu Zuqing and Ning Rongrong, had already noticed. They lived in the same dormitory, spending every day together. It was hard not to notice. As he suspected, Zhu Zuqing and Ning Rongrong were indeed the first to discover Xiao Wu's pregnancy, followed by Flender and Lu Erlong. At night, Zhu Zuqing and Ning Rongrong would always hear Xiao Wu sneaking out of bed and running outside, only to return after quite a while. One time, the two sisters, unable to resist their curiosity, followed her in secret. They saw Xiao Wu squatting by a pond, vomiting heavily. At first, Zhu Zuqing and Ning Rongrong didn't think too much of it. But after several nights of following Xiao Wu, they kept witnessing her squatting by the pond, suffering from severe morning sickness. By then, the two had their suspicions. Later, when they saw Xiao Wu's belly growing bigger by the day, their guesses were confirmed. She was indeed pregnant. Zhu Zuqing was smart and observant, but even she didn't think of Chen Xien. She assumed that something had happened between Xiao Wu and Tang San, that they hadn't taken precautions, and she had ended up accidentally pregnant. It wasn't just them who noticed. Xiao Wu's belly had grown significantly, and it was obvious to everyone. It clearly wasn't the result of weight gain. In the past, Tang San was so focused on cultivating and studying the Tang sect's hidden weapons that he hadn't noticed anything amiss. Recently, though, he finally realized the abnormality. Xiao Wu had gained a lot of weight. After the promotion tournament ended, Emperor Shui granted a 3-day break, allowing all the participating teams to return to their academies to rest, recover from injuries, and prepare for the next journey. The following day, the 3 days finally passed, and it was time to set off. Chen Xien packed all his gear, putting everything he needed into his storage soul tool. Then, he left all the remaining gold soul coins at home. Recently, he had commissioned a well-known local craftsman to forge a weapon made from the best quality materials, his current cyan gold spear, which cost him 50 to 60,000 gold soul coins. According to the craftsman, the spear was incredibly sturdy, made from the hardest materials on the continent, and impossible to break for anyone below a soul saint. In this era, such quality was considered extremely high, especially since soul tools had not been developed to the extent they would be in the future, where even 9th grade soul tools would be available. In the current era, the more powerful a soul master was, the less they needed weapons. Their own martial souls were strong enough, and only beast martial souls or agility attack types used weapons to boost their attack power. Yi, I'm leaving now. Chen Xien bid farewell to his sister and walked out the door, heading toward the gathering place. Take care, brother. Be safe on the road. At the door, Chen Yi waved, watching her brother leave. After leaving home, Chen Xien didn't return to Shrek Academy but headed straight to the gathering place, where many people were already gathered. Not long after Chen Xien arrived at the location outside the city, Flender and Lu Erlong led the Shrek group to the scene as well. There were many familiar and unfamiliar faces. Teams from Blazing Academy, Tianshui Academy, Godwind Academy, and the long-absent Heaven Do Royal Academy, who finally made their appearance today. They were a guaranteed team, able to skip the preliminary rounds. Everyone's here. Let's move out. The 1,000-plus group, well-prepared and in formation, marched toward Spirit City in a grand procession. This team of over 1,000 people consisted not only of academy participants and teachers but also included 800 elite soldiers, each strong and sturdy, as well as 200 knights. Together, they formed a military escort of 1,000 people, ensuring the safety of the students. The Empire had deployed such a large force to prove just how much Emperor Shui valued the safety of the contestants. 20 massive carriages carried each promoted academy, surrounded by the Knight Regiment for maximum protection, providing a sense of security. From inside the carriage, Chen Xien poked his head out the window, noticing that the carriage next to theirs belonged to Tianshui Academy. Chen Xien, are you spying on us? A blue-haired girl with a round face stuck her head out of the opposite window. It was Shui Yuer from Tianshui Academy's female group. Hearing the commotion, another person appeared at the window, the team leader, Shui Binger. Chen Xien, what are you up to? The humiliation from the competition was still fresh in her mind, so she didn't look too happy. Shrek could have easily swept through their team with one fighter, but they insisted on switching people out, which felt like a deliberate insult in her eyes. Damn it, can't a guy just get some fresh air without bothering you? Chen Xien, feeling helpless, pulled his head back inside. Shrek Academy had been divided into 2 carriages. Chen Xien was in the one with the 4 substitute members, along with Ma Hongjian. He wasn't in the same carriage as Tang San and Daimubai. Due to Tai Long's inability to bear being around Chen Xien, he had switched to Tang San's group. Chen Xien, I thought I heard some girls talking, Ma Hongjian said as he squeezed over to the window, trying to take a peek. Chen Xien, lost in thought, was jolted out of it by the rotund Ma Hongjian attempting to shove his head out of the window. However, Shui Binger and Shui Yuer had already retreated, leaving him with nothing to see. Meanwhile, Tang San, Daimubai, Oscar, Xiao Wu, Zhu Zuqing, and Ning Rongrong shared another carriage, with Flender and Lu Erlong riding with them. Sigh, I wonder how Xiao Gang is doing. I've been feeling uneasy these past couple of days. Lu Erlong, frowning, was deeply worried about Grandmaster's safety. Grandmaster had set out ahead of them, and over the last 3 days, Lu Erlong had been on edge, unable to shake a sense of foreboding. Erlong, don't worry. 2 Soul King Knights are accompanying him. He'll be fine. Flender reassured her, sharing the details. Tang San was also uneasy, with a similar bad feeling. The Grand Master had set out early to find a method for cultivating twin martial souls for him. If anything happened to Yu Xiaogang because of him, Tang San would never forgive himself. A teacher is like a father for life. Without Yu Xiaogang, he would never have achieved his current success, reaching level 42 at the age of 14. The others remained silent, closing their eyes to rest in the carriage. Oscar, meanwhile, was chatting with Ning Rongrong at every opportunity, even though she wasn't really responding. He remained as passionate as ever, undeterred by her lack of interest. Ning Rongrong wasn't in the mood to talk. Her thoughts were heavy because her father, Ning Fengzi, had recently made it clear that she should cut ties with the food-type soul master at the academy. This was a decision made by the 7 treasure glazed tile clan's elders. The elders had stated that a partner for the clan's disciples had to be a powerful battle soul master. Moreover, as the eldest princess of the clan and the future successor, how could she possibly be with someone without any background, a mere food-type soul master? The 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda was already the most powerful auxiliary martial soul in the world. What it lacked most was combat power and self-defense. A food-type soul master? Unheard of. Though Ning Rongrong was a bit spoiled and proud, she understood the importance of her clan. She couldn't act on impulse. Besides, she didn't actually love Oscar, she was merely moved by his passion. Ning Fengzi hoped she would understand the burden she carried and consider stronger companions like Tang San or Chen Xien. Tang San was clearly in love with Xiao Wu, which Ning Fengzi knew, so he hoped Ning Rongrong would set her sights on someone like Chen Xien, who was exceptionally talented. The elders would surely approve of him. Hearing Oscar babbling on beside her only worsened Ning Rongrong's mood. Oscar, can you please be quiet? I want to rest. She frowned, clearly displeased. Whether Oscar lacked emotional intelligence or simply lost his wit when in love, the result was the same. He faced rejection, with his affection not only ignored but actively disliked. The others exchanged glances but said nothing, respecting Ning Rongrong's wishes. Xiao Wu, meanwhile, deliberately avoided Tang San, sitting next to Zhu Zuking, using her sister's figure to hide her growing belly. However, this very behavior only deepened Tang San's suspicions. Xiao Wu, you should watch your diet. You've been putting on a lot of weight recently. The sudden question startled Xiao Wu, making her nervous immediately. Her heart was in chaos, but she forced a small smile and said, Brother San, how could I be getting fat? You must be mistaken. Lu Erlong's eyes narrowed, sensing the gravity of the situation. It seemed Tang San was starting to have suspicions. Zhu Zuking and Ning Rongrong exchanged a glance, both clearly shocked. The implications were immense. Judging from Tang San's reaction, it seemed he didn't know about Xiao Wu's pregnancy. Or perhaps, the child wasn't his. That thought struck them like a bolt of lightning. Even someone as cold and composed as Zhu Zuking couldn't remain calm. The information was overwhelming. Xiao San, what's your current soul power level? Lu Erlong quickly interjected to shift the focus. Tang San, no longer paying attention to Xiao Wu, replied, Last night, my soul power broke through to level 42. Not bad, not bad. Keep it up, Xiao San. You won't disappoint the master's expectations, Flender said. Daimubai slapped Tang San on the shoulder, laughing, Well done, Xiao San. Neither Xiao Ao nor I have broken through yet, but you're becoming more and more of a monster. With everyone chatting, Tang San completely forgot about his earlier suspicion and stopped paying attention to Xiao Wu. Xiao Wu let out a sigh of relief, having narrowly escaped his questioning. She wanted to stay by Tang San's side but didn't know how to face him. The journey ahead was long. Traveling from Heaven Do City to Spirit City would take about 20 days, most of which would be spent in the carriages. The finals would follow a knockout format. 33 teams would compete, and the champions, runners-up, and third place would be decided in 10 days. The large procession had barely left Heaven Do City for an hour when they encountered a stranger. Halt! Who are you? A knight raised his weapon, pointing his sword at the approaching figure. It was a burly man, his clothes tattered and covered in bloodstains, looking utterly ragged. I'm here to find Shrek Academy. The man's voice was hoarse, his face cold and indifferent. The knights exchanged glances, unsure of what to do. This man's aura suggested trouble. Sir, please identify yourself. Without proper information, we cannot grant your request, said General Roxanne, clad in silver armor, stepping forward. I'm a soul master from Heaven Do City, the burly man replied coldly, showing an identity token. General Roxanne took the token, examined it briefly, and then returned it. Please wait here. I will inform Shrek's teachers of your request. General Roxanne left for Shrek's carriage and relayed the situation to Flender and Lu Erlong. Someone's looking for Shrek. Flender asked, confused. Yes, Dean Flender, General Roxanne confirmed. I've checked the visitor's cultivation, he's merely a level 56 Soul King. By now, the entire Shrek group had left their carriages, attracted by the conversation. Dean, what's going on? Tang San and Daimubai asked, puzzled. Chen Xien and Jiangzhou, along with the other Shrek 7 devils, approached and overheard Roxanne's last words. A Soul King, level 56. Chen Xien's eyes twitched. This level had become too sensitive lately. He quickly recalled the memory his shadow clone had transmitted a day or two ago, where the clone had beaten up the 2 Soul Kings escorting Yu Xiaogang, who had been disguised as Tang San. Let him through, General Roxanne. One man can't cause much trouble, Flender said confidently, trusting his own strength. Lu Erlong didn't object. With 2 soul sages and a soul emperor present, they had nothing to fear. Very well. I'll bring him in, General Roxanne replied. Shortly after, Roxanne returned, accompanied by the burly man. He stood tall, towering at over 2 meters, with muscular limbs and a hulking frame. However, the man looked disheveled, his clothes torn and stained with dust and blood. His appearance didn't inspire trust. Chen Xien immediately recognized him as one of the Soul Kings his water clone had controlled. He felt a bit nervous, fearing recognition, but quickly calmed down, realizing it was unlikely. The burly man followed General Roxanne closely, step by step, but when he spotted a blue figure among the crowd, his eyes filled with murderous intent. Tang San frowned, sensing the wave of killing intent emanating from the man. Dean Flender, I've brought him here, and now I'll return to the front, Roxanne said, saluting the Shrek group before leaving to attend to his duties. Flender's cat-like eyes sharpened as he gazed at the filthy man. What business do you have with Shrek? He asked. Though Flender knew Xiaogang had hired 2 Soul Kings, he had never met them, so he didn't recognize the man. Lu Erlong's face was cold and vigilant. As a Soul Sage, she could sense the man's hostility. With 2 Soul Sages and a Soul Emperor present, there was no way this man could cause any trouble. I wish to speak with Tang San, the Soul King said coldly, his eyes locked onto the blue figure. To him, this refined young man, Tang San, was nothing more than a treacherous villain who had betrayed his teacher, a disgrace to humanity. His methods were vicious. He had nearly killed his own master. If not for a kind passerby, his brother would have died. Tang San frowned. So, the man had come for him after all. Flender's expression was unreadable. You can speak here, or you can leave, he said. The Soul King remained calm and spoke quietly. This concerns the master. His words were few, but their impact was immediate. What do you mean? Flender's gaze sharpened. Many possibilities crossed his mind in an instant. Could Yu Xiaogang have been kidnapped by this man? What happened to Xiaogang? Did something happen to him? Lu Erlong couldn't keep calm. She was extremely agitated. If not for Xiao Wu holding her back, she might have rushed forward. The Soul King remained silent, his eyes fixed on Tang San. His intent was clear. He was holding back, suppressing the raging fire inside him. If not for the presence of the 2 Soul Sages, he would have already lunged at Tang San to tear him apart. Flender understood. This man was after Tang San, and even though he knew the danger, he couldn't avoid the situation. Xiao San, go, Lu Erlong ordered. She wasn't concerned about formalities now, she wanted answers. Tang San didn't hesitate either. The master's information was important to him too. He moved away from the group, stopping about 30 meters from them. As he walked, he circulated his internal energy, his eyes flashing with purple light, and his hands were covered in a jade-like glow, ready with his purple demon eyes and mysterious jade hands. Uncle, now can you tell me? What happened to my teacher? Tang San asked. The Soul King let out a cold laugh, as if he had just heard the most ridiculous thing. Still pretending to be innocent? You hypocrite! Go to hell. Suddenly, the Soul King exploded with power, his soul force soaring. He drew a gleaming blade, and with the flashing of 3 soul rings, his aura became overwhelmingly oppressive. Like a prehistoric beast, the Soul King suddenly launched an attack, unleashing a deadly strike with a dazzling flash of blades and swords, aiming to tear Tang San apart. Tang San had been prepared, with his mysterious jade hand and purple demon eye always activated. He swiftly retreated at the first sign of the attack. Clang! His palms, as tough as jade, directly clashed with the blade's energy. With a metallic sound, his whole body trembled, his arms felt like they were being torn apart, and his palms were as if they were about to melt. The pain, it was excruciating. You wretch, give me your life. The Soul King took a step forward, leaping into the air to continue the chase. In midair, a black soul ring lit up beneath him. His long blade glowed, gathering terrifying energy, and with a sharp sound, multiple white beams slashed out. The blade energy was like a rainbow, sharp beyond measure. 4th soul skill, blue-silver thrusting array. Dozens of vines shot out from the ground, rising into the sky like spears, sharp and pointed, piercing toward the Soul King. The cold blade light intertwined, sweeping across a wide range of 10 meters, splitting the ground, and turning rocks into dust in an instant. Sand flew everywhere. The blade light, like a rainbow, destroyed everything in its path. In an instant, dozens of blue-silver grass vines were cut into hundreds of pieces. This was Tang San's 10,000-year soul skill, his most powerful blue-silver grass attack. Yet, in front of the Soul King, it seemed so fragile and easily defeated. Die! The Soul King roared, his eyes bloodshot. As the waves of blade energy approached and were about to hit Tang San, Flender could no longer sit still. With a boom, a burst of soul power surged out, and a huge bird materialized. Clang, clang, clang. Each blade light was incredibly sharp, but when it struck the bird, it couldn't pierce through, only leaving a few cuts on its surface. Humph, how dare you attack my student? You're quite bold. Flender's face darkened. At the critical moment, he had activated his 7th soul skill, Martial Soul Avatar, blocking all the attacks. Otherwise, Tang San would have been in grave danger. The Soul King was furious and full of regret. He had been so close but failed to kill his target. With a Soul Saint intervening, he knew his chances were gone. He turned and fled. Lu Erlong descended from the sky, her leg igniting in flames as she dived down. Boom! A huge crater formed in the ground, with sand flying everywhere. Just as the Soul King took a few steps, he was kicked into the crater by Lu Erlong, blood pouring from his wounds. Ah! The Soul King screamed in agony, lying face down in the sand pit, his back covered in blood, his spine broken. Lu Erlong was fierce, like a raging dragon. She was furious and delivered another kick to the Soul King, sending him flying to land at the feet of the Shrek group. Speak, who sent you? Flender grabbed him like a helpless chick and lifted him up. Tang San's face was grim as he asked, "We have no grudges. Why do you want to kill me?" He didn't recognize the man before him, yet the other seemed to know him well, which filled him with confusion. He. The Soul King's mouth was full of blood, but he laughed coldly, his gaze toward Tang San full of mockery. What do you mean? Tang San frowned. The Shrek group also stared at him intently. Chen Xien and a few others quietly observed from behind the crowd, expressionless. You're playing innocent? Don't you know what you've done? The Soul King's mouth was full of blood, but he continued to sneer. Even in Flender's grasp, he was arrogant, daring to provoke the Shrek group. Damn it, I can't take it anymore. Dean, let me deal with him. Ma Hongjun, furious, rolled up his sleeves, ready to teach the Soul King a lesson. Daimyobai reached out to stop him from acting rashly. You Shrek people have raised a great Buddha, not realizing it's a dog that devours everything, the Soul King taunted, his eyes full of disdain. What do you mean by that? Tang San's face darkened further, anger simmering within him. What do I mean? Ha ha ha. The Soul King laughed mockingly. You act all innocent, but I was the one escorting your teacher. 2 days ago, you brutally killed your own master. Your methods were cruel, and you even injured my brother. Don't act like you don't know. I saw it with my own eyes. Even if you turned to ashes, I would recognize you. He then began recounting the details of that day, describing how Tang San, like a demon, had tortured Yu Xiaogang step by step, cutting off his flesh and severing his tendons, leaving him a cripple. As he spoke, the revelation hit everyone like a tidal wave, shaking them to their core. What did you say? Xiaogang is dead. Lu Erlong's voice trembled as if struck by a thunderbolt. Her eyes went hollow, and her face turned ashen. Even Flender, hearing this news, seemed drained of all strength, stumbling. If it weren't for Ma Hongjun holding him up, he might have fallen. No, you must be lying. Xiaogang is too smart, he can't be dead. Lu Erlong went into a frenzy, her hair flying wildly as she lost control. The Soul King sneered, expecting this reaction. He pulled out a token from his pocket and tossed it at Lu Erlong's feet. Lu Erlong's pupils contracted as her face grew paler. With trembling hands, she picked up the token. It was Yu Xiaogang's, unmistakably. Flender broke free from Ma Hongjun's support, staggered forward, snatched the token, and then collapsed onto the ground. It truly was Yu Xiaogang's token. Xiaogang is really dead. His voice trembled as he struggled to accept the reality. The Shrek group was in shock, finding it hard to believe. The revelation was too sudden. Had the invincible master really fallen? Chen Xien squeezed out 2 tears, mourning Yu Xiaogang but remaining calm to avoid suspicion. At this moment, Tang San was the most shaken, his mind in turmoil, unable to recover. I killed my teacher, he murmured, doubting himself. Qin Ming, Daimyobai, Oscar, Ma Hongjun, and others were also deeply saddened. Some of them might not have liked the master much, but Yu Xiaogang had taught them for over 2 years, and an emotional bond had formed. Zhang Zhu, Huang Yuan, and Jingling were less affected, having joined the Shrek team only recently and had little connection with Yu Xiaogang. For a long time, the place remained shrouded in a somber atmosphere. Some wept, some cried, while others remained relatively calm. Lu Erlong was in unbearable pain. After decades, she had only recently confirmed her relationship with Yu Xiaogang. Now, she was struck by this devastating news. She had preserved her chastity for Yu Xiaogang for decades, only to receive news of his death. The pain was overwhelming, suffocating her, and she even considered ending her life to join him. You're saying I killed my teacher? What proof do you have? Tang San finally snapped out of his daze. The Soul King sneered. Still not admitting it? I saw it with my own eyes. Tang San gritted his teeth, his face cold as ice. He spoke slowly and clearly, you're lying. You say I killed my teacher the day before yesterday? I was at the academy the whole time, and everyone can vouch for me. He pulled out the Zudge divine crossbow, aiming it at the Soul King's head, shouting, you're deceiving us? The teacher isn't dead. Now, tell us, who sent you? What's wrong? Now that your ugly crime has been exposed, are you trying to silence me? The Soul King man continued to sneer coldly. Despite having a Zudge divine crossbow pointed at his head, he showed no fear and kept provoking Tang San. Xiao San, calm down. Daimyobai stepped forward and quickly snatched the crossbow from Tang San, afraid he might act impulsively. Soon after, Flender also shook off his sorrowful emotions. His mind was still clear, and he had no reason to doubt Tang San. Xiao San treated Xiaogang like his own father. How could he possibly commit patricide? There was no motive for such a crime. I think it was you who killed Xiaogang and came here to sow discord. Flender chose to believe Tang San and directed his accusations toward the Soul King man. When the Shrek members heard this, they suddenly realized the truth. Tai Long even stood in front of Tang San and declared, Third young master has a kind heart, and he upholds justice. He's a role model for us all. Do you think your words alone are enough to prove he killed the master? Do you have any evidence? My eyes are the evidence. The Soul King snorted, still convinced that Chen Xien was disguising himself to gain everyone's sympathy. Shut up. A hoarse voice from Lu Erlong came from the side. Her eyes were bloodshot, and she was filled with killing intent. In an instant, she appeared in front of the man, reached out, and grabbed his head, lifting him off the ground. Her anger boiled, and she was ready to kill. She could do anything in her current state. Tell me, what really happened to Xiao Gang? Was it you who harmed him? The Soul King laughed, his mouth full of bloody foam, making him appear pitiful. He replied, I've said it many times, the murderer is among you. If you don't believe me, fine, but you attack your benefactor. Now I see it clearly, all of you from Shrek are disgusting worms, deceived by a killer. You are utterly foolish. Pfft. As the last word left his mouth, the Soul King's head suddenly exploded with a loud pop. His brain matter and blood splattered everywhere, even shattering his eyeballs under the pressure of Lu Erlong's soul power. Lu Erlong stood there, cold and indifferent, without a trace of emotion. She had crushed his skull without hesitation. Blood and brain matter stained her face and hair, yet her eyes remained calm, exuding only cruelty. The Soul King's head had been reduced to a bloody mess, with only the skin of his face remaining intact. It was a grotesque and bloody scene. Ugh! The sight was too much to handle, and several people immediately started retching, their faces pale from disgust. Even Chen Xien and Daimubai, who were usually tough, felt as if they had swallowed a dead fly, leaving them nauseous. For a long time afterward, they wouldn't be able to eat. Chen Xien felt his stomach turn. The scene was so revolting that even he struggled to endure it. Time passed, and over 10 days went by as the group of over 1,000 people traveled through the desert. During this period, the army had crossed 2 deserts and was now entering a red rock terrain. Strange, we've walked dozens of miles, but there are no birds or beasts. It's too quiet. Qin Ming had been paying attention for a while and noticed the anomaly. Flender nodded. This area was unnervingly quiet, and with the dangerous terrain ahead, extra caution was needed. They were approaching a canyon-like region with towering cliffs on either side, an ideal spot for an ambush. The army had to pass through the middle, and if a crisis occurred, the narrow terrain would put them at a significant disadvantage. Qin Ming and Lu Erlong entered the carriage, warning the students to stay vigilant. Both Lu Erlong and Chen Xien were still consumed by grief over the master's death. Over 10 days had passed, and neither had been able to move on. The two were practically broken, detached from the world and steeped in sorrow. While Flender was also deeply saddened, he knew that the dead could not come back to life. As the protector of the children, he bore a heavy responsibility and understood that he couldn't waste his energy dwelling on the past. The others were handling it better. Since their bond with Yu Xiaogang wasn't as deep, they were initially upset, but they moved on more quickly. Based on the Soul King's testimony, Chen Xien concluded that Yu Xiaogang was indeed dead. There was no longer any chance of survival. He had worried that something unexpected might happen, like Yu Xiaogang being miraculously saved, but luck can't be guaranteed. With the Soul King's gruesome death, the Shrek group finally accepted Yu Xiaogang's fate, except for Lu Erlong and Chen Xien, who still held on to hope that the master was alive. This was a minor episode in their journey. The Heaven Do army continued on its way, unaffected, and even the nearby Tianshui and Blazing Academies weren't disrupted. After 10 days of travel, the 1,000-strong group had crossed mountains and deserts, covering 600 to 700 kilometers, drawing closer and closer to Spirit Hall. The Heaven Do royal army was now stepping into a barren wasteland, with rocky hills and endless yellow sand. There was little greenery, and even the signs of small animals were rare. This area seemed lifeless. The group of over 1,000 included not only the Heaven Do army soldiers and teachers leading them but also nobles, sect disciples, and many others. Their pace was slow and leisurely as they entered a canyon area, the cliffs on both sides towering like walls over 100 feet tall. The silence along the way was unsettling. No birds, no insects, just dead silence. Halfway through the canyon, chaos suddenly erupted. Boom! A loud, deafening sound echoed, shaking the earth. The mountains trembled slightly as the air filled with the rumble of falling rocks. From both sides of the mountains, rows of black-clad figures appeared, pushing down massive boulders that tumbled down the slopes. Hundreds of rocks came crashing down, densely packed, aiming directly at the Heaven Do army. Enemy attack? Quickly, form a defensive formation. General Roxin shouted, rallying the soldiers to form a defensive stance. The academies, including Heaven Do, Blazing, and Divine Wind, were the first to notice the attack. They all rushed out of their carriages, ready for battle. Inside the giant Shrek carriage, everyone heard the commotion outside, the deafening crashes, the angry shouts of knights, and the screams of some academy girls. It was chaos. Senior Qin, what's going on? What's happening outside? Daimubai called out. The tremors from the crashing boulders felt like an earthquake, terrifying everyone inside. Qin Ming's expression was grim as he warned the Shrek members, we are under attack. Remember, prioritize your safety, stay calm, and prepare to fight. Understood, Senior Qin, the Shrek group responded. Once the commotion outside subsided, the Shrek 7 devils exited the carriage, ready for battle. Meanwhile, in the carriage of the substitute group, Tai Long, sensing danger, ignored the risks outside and charged out first, eager to protect his comrades. Third young master, I'm coming. Zhang Zhu, nervous, grabbed Chen Xien's arm and asked, Xien, should we go out and help? The earlier crashes had shaken her, leaving her body weak and her palms sweating. What's happening out there? Huang Yuan and Jingling were also frightened. The sudden quake had caught them off guard, and their hearts pounded in fear. Let's wait a bit before going out. Chen Xien remained calm, having anticipated the situation. If he remembered correctly, the attackers were from Spirit Hall, acting under orders from Pope Bibi Dong to target Tang San. It appeared that the 1,000-strong group had been attacked, but the real objective was only Tang San. The teachers and students from other academies were unharmed, with no casualties. Unfortunately, the ordinary soldiers were not so lucky. They became the cannon fodder, sacrificing their lives without knowing why. Spirit Hall had sent out soul masters, not regular people, while the Heaven Do army was filled with common soldiers, making it an uneven match. Let's go see what's happening. Once the outside quieted down, Chen Xien called to the others and led them out of the carriage. Huang Yuan and Jingling stepped out of the carriage and were instantly stunned, standing frozen in shock. The area was filled with flying dust and swirling yellow sand, and in front of them, huge boulders blocked their path. Each boulder was larger than an elephant, completely sealing off the surroundings. The carriage and its occupants were trapped inside a ring of massive, grey stones. These boulders weighed thousands of pounds. The thought of one of them hitting the carriage was terrifying. If they had been struck, they would have been severely injured or worse. Huang Yuan and Jingling felt a wave of fear. Neither of them had activated their martial souls, and their physical strength was only marginally stronger than that of an average person. Jiangju clutched her chest, her face pale, gasping for air. She was a support soul master, and her physique was weak. If she were hit by one of these boulders, she would undoubtedly die on the spot. Don't be afraid. I've been on alert with my sensing abilities. If there were any danger, I would have taken you away earlier, Chen Xien reassured Jiangju. The boulders blocked the road, and for a 30-meter radius, the area was filled with stones. This separated them from the rest of the Shrek group. Chen Xien withdrew his sensing power. Within 30 meters, there was nothing but boulders. Breaking through them would be impractical, as it would take too much effort. Tyrone, eager to save the others but not foolish, also crossed over the boulders. Jingling, Huang Yuan, stay here and protect Jiangju. I'll go provide support, Chen Xien said. The enemies they were facing included many Soul Kings and Soul Emperors. The three of them had only reached the level of Soul Elders, and their help would be limited. Got it. Be careful, Jingling and Huang Yuan nodded. They knew their limitations and decided to wait. Chen, please be careful, Jiangju said worriedly. Don't worry. My strength outside the arena is completely different from when I'm inside. Chen Xien smiled, then transformed into a streak of golden light and disappeared in an instant. If it were only Tang San under attack, he wouldn't have bothered to help. But since Zhu Zuking and the mother of his child were involved, he couldn't just stand by and do nothing. Xiao Wu was pregnant and had been betrayed by Tang San. Chen Xien couldn't be certain if her feelings for Tang San had changed, or if her love had become tainted. There was even a chance that the Acacia Heartbreak Red Flower might lose its effectiveness. Huang Yuan and Jingling widened their eyes in shock. When had Chen Xien become so fast? Meanwhile, the Shrek Academy team was being besieged by powerful enemies. Wave after wave of black-clad attackers targeted Tang San and his companions. The black-clad figures were formidable, even without activating their martial souls. Shrek's 7 devils found themselves in a bitter struggle, with even Tang San unable to find a way to break the deadlock. Flander and Lu Erlong were both engaged in battles of their own, each facing a high-level soul saint. Locked in combat in the sky, they were too preoccupied to help the younger generation. At this moment, Tang San, Daimyu and the others were surrounded by 20 black-clad attackers. Wielding knives, daggers, and other weapons that gleamed coldly, the attackers advanced menacingly toward the Shrek 7 devils. Fire! Tang San shouted, pulling out a black box. The other members of Shrek raised their arms, aiming their Zudge crossbows at the black-clad attackers, and pulled the triggers. In unison, 7 crossbows emitted a metallic clang, and hundreds of bolts shot out, raining down on the attackers. Shing shing shing! The sky filled with a dense volley of arrows, and the black-clad figures had no time to react before the arrows were upon them. With the sound of flesh being pierced, the 20 black-clad attackers were riddled with arrows, their bodies filled with holes. They fell into pools of blood. The wide attack range of the Zudge crossbows left no escape. The attackers were turned into pincushions, some having their heads exploded, splattering blood and brain matter across the sand. Their deaths were gruesome. The bolts dripped with a purple liquid that emitted a toxic vapor, clearly coated with poison. Some of the attackers struggled, not dying immediately, but the poison had already infiltrated their bodies, destroying their internal organs beyond repair. Screams? Some of the black-clad attackers let out horrifying screams, writhing in agony. Their bodies turned purple, foaming at the mouth as veins bulged, before they quickly succumbed to death. Thanks to the crossbows, the Shrek team managed to survive and take out a large number of enemies. Luckily we had Tang San's crossbows. Otherwise, we would have been in real danger. Daimyu sighed in relief, grateful to have Tang San as an ally. Ma Hongjian, ever the opportunist, took the chance to flatter Tang San. Yeah, third brother, you're amazing? Could you spare me a few more of these crossbows? He pocketed one of the Zudge crossbows, not planning to return it. Tang San didn't care about Ma Hongjian's actions. Smiling at Daimyobai, he said, the Zudge crossbows are best used when catching the enemy off guard. If they had prepared and activated their martial souls, the crossbows wouldn't have been as effective. Why didn't they use their martial souls? Ning Rongrong asked, puzzled. They're probably trying to avoid exposing their identities. Zhu Zuqing, with her cold and intelligent demeanor, quickly analyzed the situation. Tang San nodded, agreeing with her assessment. He had come to the same conclusion. Daimyobai laughed heartily. My little kitty is getting smarter and smarter. As he spoke, he tried to move closer to Zhu Zuqing, intending to put his arm around her. Zhu Zuqing's eyes flashed with disgust. Recognizing his ploy, she quickly stepped back, evading his hand. We're not married yet. Mind your behavior, Zhu Zuqing said coldly. Daimyobai forced a laugh, awkwardly withdrawing his hand and pretending nothing had happened. No one noticed the cold, vicious glint that flickered in his eyes. By this time, Chen Xien had arrived. Using his flying thunder god technique, he teleported to the top of a canyon, observing the situation without rushing down. From this vantage point, he could gather more information. He had left a flying thunder god Kunao below, allowing him to instantly intervene if Xiao Wu was in danger. Flander and Lu Erlong were each battling a Soul King, far off in another part of the sky, unable to help. Even Soul Emperor Qinming was tied up in a fierce battle with a black-clad opponent of equal strength. Chen Xien frowned as he sensed a powerful figure approaching, stronger than Lu Erlong, with soul power that was overwhelming. Soon, the figure appeared, clad in black, their face completely hidden except for a pair of hawk-like eyes. Two other black-clad figures followed closely behind, exuding a formidable aura far beyond the previous attackers. Interesting. Even 20 Soul Kings couldn't take you down. No wonder you're so highly regarded, said the leader of the black-clad group. Despite the compliment, their tone dripped with disdain, as if they didn't take the Shrek team seriously at all. The three figures radiated a terrifying aura, and their presence alone filled the air with killing intent. Two of them immediately activated their martial souls, revealing 6 soul rings each, yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, and black. They were both soul emperors. Soul emperors. Daimyobai's face darkened. The two seemed to be servants, each possessing the strength of a soul emperor. The leader, with their confident air, must have been even stronger, likely at the level of a soul Douluo. Realizing this, Tang San's expression grew grim. This was going to be a tough fight. The Shrek team turned pale as they came to the same conclusion. Xiao Wu's face was ghostly white, her palms sweating. Her heart raced with fear, worried that the enemy might discover her true identity as a soul beast. Chen Xien's expression grew serious as well. He remained on high alert, ready to provide support at any moment. The Shrek team turned pale, their bodies growing cold from head to toe with a deep sense of helplessness. 2 soul emperors were manageable, but adding a soul Douluo level powerhouse to the mix seemed overkill for dealing with a small group of low-level soul masters. Daimyobai bit his lip, tasting blood in his mouth as he tried to stay calm. He couldn't understand why the enemy would mobilize such powerful forces just to eliminate them. What could they possibly gain? Tang San felt equally puzzled. Shrek team had always acted cautiously, avoiding conflicts, so why would they attract such formidable foes? Confronted by this powerful enemy, all members of Shrek activated their martial spirits. The oppressive aura from their opponents was overwhelming, with even a hint of killing intent sending shivers down their spines. Chen Xien, observing from the sidelines, felt the pressure too. Daimyobai and the others weren't mistaken. The black-clad man was indeed at the Soul Douluo level, at the peak of 89th level, just a step away from the title rank. His name was Lord Yala, one of the strongest Soul Douluos from the Spirit Hall. Go, test their skills, the black-clad leader said with a tone full of disdain. Yes. The 2 soul emperors laughed, moving closer to the Shrek team. Everyone, gather around. Tang San shouted. The team quickly assembled near him, preparing the Zudge Divine Crossbow, ready to fire at any moment. Tyrone, Mubai, Zuqing, hold one of them off. Xiao Wu, Fatty, and I will take on the other. Rong and Xiao Ao, you'll support us. Tang San instructed calmly. Within seconds, he formulated a strategy and assigned roles accordingly. Mubai, Tyrone, just stall them for a while. I have a plan to handle him, Tang San said, taking out 2 small metal balls from his pocket. Leave it to me, San. I've got Tyrone covered, Tyrone said, rubbing his fists together fearlessly. The black-clad soul saints overheard their strategy and scoffed. You plan to fight us with just a few low-level soul masters? Ha ha ha. The other soul saint laughed with disdain. We don't need our leader for this. Give us a minute, and we'll wipe them out. Chen Xien covered his face. The opponents were soul emperors, Daimyobai and Tyrone, despite their efforts, were no match. Only Zuqing, who had reached level 47, stood a chance. Boom! The Shrek team clashed with the black-clad soul saints below. The air churned with soul power as both sides unleashed their full strength. Both soul emperors had beast-type martial spirits, and though they refrained from using their soul skills, Daimyobai and Tyrone, who were expending all their soul skills, couldn't last a minute against them. Tang San faced off against the other soul emperor, deploying 6 soul-chasing daggers, his deadliest hidden weapon aside from the king's token. The poison in them could incapacitate the enemy, even if it couldn't kill him. Hidden weapons were his source of confidence. Ma Hongjun soared above, launching ranged attacks to support Tang San. Meanwhile, Ningrongrong summoned her 9 treasures glazed tile pagoda, activating her 4 soul rings and enhancing her teammates with 4 buffs. The 6 soul-chasing daggers collided in midair, triggering a mechanism that released a poisonous mist, enveloping a 30-meter radius. The Shrek team quickly retreated. With poison in play, Chen Xien's domain was in full effect, and they could only stay back. Within the poisonous mist, countless fine, needle-thin projectiles coated in venom formed a web, shooting toward the black-clad Soul Emperor. "Help me by. I'll handle things here." Tang San, resolute, held 2 Zudge divine crossbows, ready to use every skill from the Tang sect. Meanwhile, Daimubai and Tyrone were on the brink of defeat. The black-clad Soul Emperor, though not of the agility type, was incredibly fast, using his superior level to dominate them. 3rd Soul Skill, White Tiger Vajra Transformation. 4th Soul Skill, White Tiger Meteor Shower. Daimubai unleashed his most powerful attacks. But with a couple of blows, both Daimubai and Tyrone felt the impact on their heads, buzzing with pain and almost fainting. Thud, thud. The 2 coughed up blood, their faces pale as they flew backward, crashing at Xiao Wu and Rongrong's feet, nearly unconscious. Only Zhu Zuking, thanks to her speed, avoided the enemy's attack. Oscar took out his sausage charms and quickly fed them to the 2, bringing some color back to their faces. Zhu Zuking glanced at the injured Daimubai, then at Tang San, who was still fighting fiercely. She sighed, feeling a hint of disappointment. While she knew it wasn't fair to compare Daimubai with a Soul Emperor, her fiancé's lackluster performance, especially in the presence of 2 exceptionally strong peers, left her disheartened. Tisk, 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 the black-clad Soul Emperor sneered, his gaze wandering over Zhu Zuking's figure with a lecherous look. "Young lady, just spend a night with me, and I might convince my leader to spare your friends. How about it?" He laughed, completely disregarding Daimubai's feelings. Zhu Zuking's expression darkened with disgust. The men around her filled her with revulsion. "No need to rush. I'll give you 10 seconds to decide." He laughed, his gaze trailing shamelessly over her curves. Daimubai clenched his teeth, fists shaking in frustration. He was powerless to make the man stop. "Zuking, don't agree to his demands." Daimubai looked at her, a trace of desperation in his eyes. Zhu Zuking's face grew cold as she retorted icily, "Do you take me for someone like you, dirty and shameless?" Seeing the disappointing choices Daimubai had been making since Chen Xien arrived made her feel a deep sense of frustration. "Have you decided?" The black-clad Soul Emperor stepped closer, his gaze filled with predatory intent. With a sinister smile, he taunted, "You're a smart girl. Come now, surrender to me, and I'll show you some real affection." "Ha ha ha. Enough. I can't take this anymore." Chen Xien yelled, leaping down from the cliff to land a flying kick. The black-clad Soul Emperor, vigilant, looked up to see the young man rushing toward him. He detected Chen Xien's energy and scoffed, seeing only a low-level Soul Master. The man planted his hands on the ground, springing upward to deliver a lethal kick, convinced his move would kill. Chen Xien instantly snapped to full alert, realizing his mistake in forgetting the man's true strength. Facing such a powerful Soul Emperor was a deadly risk. He channeled all his energy, surrounding himself in an electric field that condensed into purple lightning at his feet, unleashing an enhanced attack. In the split second before impact, his Sharinon evolved, completing the Mangekyo Sharinon. What just happened? The Shrek team stood in shock, dumbfounded by the scene in front of them. Daimubai froze, his tiger eyes wide with disbelief as he stared forward. Xiao Wu and Ningrongrong covered their mouths, astonished and unable to believe what they had just seen. Zhu Zuking lightly bit her lip, gazing softly at the man, and a small smile crept onto her face. Normally icy and cold as a mountain peak, her smile now seemed to melt everything around her, bringing an unmatched elegance to her expression. Daimubai's face darkened, a hint of coldness flashing in his eyes. He had never seen Zhu Zuking show such an expression before, usually so distant toward him, yet now smiling at another man. Even Chen Xien, the one responsible for this, was utterly bewildered. What in the world? He'd just killed a high-level Soul Emperor with a single kick? Was that even possible? This was a Soul Emperor in the 60s, and Chen Xien, a mere 16-year-old across 2 major levels, had taken down the black-clad Soul Emperor with one direct strike. It was stunning. The entire area fell silent, even the sound of a pin drop could be heard. Soul Douluo Lordiala was also taken aback. As a Soul Douluo himself, he hadn't expected things to turn out like this. How could a young Soul Master take down a Soul Emperor, even if they hadn't used their soul skills? This child cannot be allowed to live. Lordiala's eyes were cold, his killing intent palpable. Someone with this potential was bound to threaten the Spirit Hall if left unchecked. 1 minute earlier, Chen Xien had gathered his lightning power, merging it into purple lightning that concentrated at his feet as he dove down. The black-clad Soul Emperor, with his hands on the ground, launched himself up and kicked at Chen Xien without using any soul skills, just a straightforward, plain kick. In the final moment, Chen activated his Mangekyo Sharinon, boosting both his offense and defense without using any special eye techniques. When their kicks clashed, something strange happened. As the Soul Emperor's foot touched Chen's purple lightning, it was torn apart as if it were made of tofu, his flesh shredded and blood splattering. "Ah!" The man screamed, his face twisted in pain as the lightning tore through his flesh, leaving the bones exposed. He knew that if this continued, he would die, so he tried to activate his soul skills to kill the young man before him. Seeing the black soul ring appear, Chen Xien became even more determined. Pouring half his soul power into the attack, the lightning at his feet grew fiercer, bursting with uncontrollable energy. And then, it was over. The Soul Emperor's leg was completely shredded, exposing white bone. In a gruesome twist, Chen Xian's lightning sliced through his body from the groin to the head, tearing him in half. Blood and internal organs spilled onto the ground, turning the sand foul. The sight was beyond gory, organs and flesh scattered everywhere. Although Chen Xien had seen his fair share of violent battles, he felt queasy and quickly moved away. He couldn't bear to look any longer, or he might lose his appetite for days. Ma Hongjian, who had just flown back, witnessed the scene and felt his stomach churn, vomiting on the spot. Chen, come on, could you show a little mercy? That was brutal, he complained while vomiting, feeling utterly disturbed. How could I know he was that fragile? He couldn't even handle a single kick. I seriously question if he was a real Soul Emperor, Chen Xien shrugged, looking helpless. The Shrek team twitched at his words. Really? Even Daimyobai and Tyrone's faces darkened, wondering if he was mocking them on purpose. After all, they had just thrown all their soul skills at the black-clad Soul Emperor and still got beaten badly, their heads still buzzing. But Chen Xien had taken him down with a single kick. His words seemed almost like a slap in their faces. Ning Rongrong walked over and playfully knocked on Chen Xien's head, finding his modesty a bit too insincere. Killing my lieutenant, you pests, prepare to die. A cold voice sounded from above, and the black-clad leader descended, landing before the Shrek team. At the same time, Tang San, having defeated the other Soul Emperor, rejoined his teammates. The leader released his martial spirit, a golden, radiant bird appearing behind him, with soul rings spreading on the ground, 2 yellow, 2 purple, 4 black, a genuine Soul Douluo. The Shrek team's faces turned pale, feeling chills run down their spines. They had guessed correctly, he was indeed a Soul Douluo level powerhouse. Tang San's expression grew serious, feeling a deep despair. Against a Soul Douluo, his hidden weapons were ineffective, leaving him with no options. San, maybe we should retreat for now. I have flight sausages, Oscar whispered, his hands holding 8 sausages, each capable of granting temporary flight. Chen Xien glanced at him but said nothing. Although Oscar had lowered his voice, the Soul Douluo overheard him easily. Trying to escape. Lordiala sneered, his hawk-like eyes fixed on the sausages in Oscar's hands. Swoosh! The air whistled as a golden blade, 10 meters long and razor-sharp, slashed horizontally at the Shrek team. Oscar stood nearby, but Chen Xien ignored him, instead throwing a kunao, grabbing Xiao Wu and Ning Rongrong, and dodging first. In a panic, Tang San kicked Oscar away and used blue-silver grass to pull Tyrone upward. The rest of the team quickly scattered to avoid the incoming attack. With a loud crash, the rock formations behind them were sliced clean in half, as fragile as tofu under the golden blade. Martial spirit possession. The golden bird fused with Lordiala, and his aura skyrocketed. Behind him, his soul power surged, forming a pair of golden wings, each feather gleaming dangerously, sharp enough to kill. Oscar's plan was foolish. This was a flying Soul Douluo, the flight granted by his sausages was nowhere near as effective, and splitting up would only allow him to pick them off one by one. San, what do we do now? Daimyobai gritted his teeth, feeling a sense of hopelessness. Tang San's expression was heavy. His prized hidden weapons were ineffective here, and he had no plan. High above in the valley, Chen Xien, along with Xiao Wu and Ning Rongrong, had found a safe spot on a cliff. Strange, why hasn't our backup arrived yet? He was perplexed. By now, Ning Fengzi and Sword Douluo should have noticed the battle. Could you let go already? Ning Rongrong muttered in annoyance. At that moment, both she and Xiao Wu were still in his arms, one on each side, making it appear as if he was indulging in a moment of bliss. Zhu Huaguan made a powerful entrance, stepping through the air. As he arrived, he activated his martial soul, and 9 soul rings, 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 5 black appeared beneath him. Title Douluo. The Shrek team's faces paled. This effeminate, soft-spoken man was actually a 9-ring Douluo. Seeing the 9 soul rings exuding immense pressure, Daimyobai, Oscar, and the others turned white as sheets, struggling to breathe under the intense weight. Among them, only Ning Rongrong remained relatively composed. Growing up with 2 super Douluo grandfathers, she was used to intense situations. Xiao Wu, however, looked panicked, her body trembling slightly as she hid behind Tang San. Fear rose within her, she dreaded being noticed by Zhu Douluo. Now that she was pregnant, her soul beast aura was difficult to suppress. If he discovered her identity, she would be cast into a pit of despair. Not only would she lose the trust of Tang San and her friends, but she could also become a soul ring for the Soul Masters. Dragon and Serpent Duo, why aren't you scramming when you see me? Zhu Huaguan sneered, gazing down at the 2 elderly figures. Xiao Wu's reaction had already caught his attention. Why does this girl's aura feel familiar? Zhu Huaguan muttered to himself, but he couldn't figure out why. It felt odd. Old man. Lady Snake Zhao Tianxiang looked gravely at her partner, tugging her granddaughter Meng Yuren by the hand and shaking her head at Elder Dragon. The situation was now far more dangerous, and they had a granddaughter to care for. Risking their lives for Tang San wasn't worth it. Elder Dragon Meng Shu sighed. With a title Douluo present, he was powerless. As his wife had pointed out, their priority was their granddaughter, and Shrek Academy was not worth sacrificing themselves for. Without hesitation, the dragon and serpent duo turned and left with Meng Yuren, vanishing without a backward glance. Meng Yuren looked at Elder Dragon in shock, having never seen him look this way before. She wanted to say something but was silenced by his glance, which forbade her from speaking. Before she left, she looked apologetically at Tang San, then disappeared with her grandparents. With their departure, the Shrek team's situation became even graver. Not only did they face a Soul Douluo, but now a 9-ring title Douluo as well. What are you standing around for? Do you need me to handle this? Zhu Huaguan's eyes swept toward the black-clad figures with impatience. Yes, sir. Lord Yura directed a ruthless smile at the Shrek group, his gaze honing in on Tang San. Although he bore no personal grudge against this young man, Tang San belonged to the Clear Sky clan. The deep enmity between the Clear Sky clan and Spirit Hall was undeniable. The previous Pope Qian Sunji had died at Tang Hao's hands, creating a blood feud that could never be forgotten. Tang San had exposed the Clear Sky Hammer, using the clan's direct inheritance technique, the chaotic cloak hammer method, leaving Shrek's group with no option but to resist. However, they soon found they couldn't move, as if bound by some invisible force. Tang San's nose twitched, catching a whiff of a floral scent. Activating his purple demon eye, he was startled to see the air thick with the fragrance of chrysanthemums, which was keeping them immobilized. Lord Yura transformed into an eagle-like creature, his golden soul power surging forward. Xiao Wu's body emitted a red glow, breaking through the golden aroma that bound them, freeing the Shrek group. At the same time, the golden giant eagle swooped in, its talons flashing cold as it aimed for Tang San's head. Hold on. Zhu Huaguan raised his hand, releasing a vast soul power that rippled in a dazzling array. Lord Yura was immediately immobilized in midair. With a bang, Lord Yura was thrown back, blood seeping from his nose and mouth as he crashed into a wall 20 meters away. Coughing up blood, he felt as if his entire body was falling apart. My lord, you. He wanted to curse, but dared not. Frustrated, he had to hold his tongue. Zhu Huaguan ignored him and walked directly toward Tang San. His speed was astonishing, reaching the speed of sound, closing the distance in an instant. However, Zhu Huaguan walked right past Tang San, his gaze fixed on a pink figure. His face showed shock, as if he had encountered something extraordinary. In a lightning-fast move, he reached out for Xiao Wu. Even Tang San, standing nearby, didn't have time to react. The aura of lovesickness heartbreak red. So you have been recognized by the lovesickness heartbreak red. Zhu Huaguan's eyes lit up with excitement. His heart raced, his blood surged. He could hardly believe he was seeing the legendary plant here. Xiao Wu tried to resist, but he was too powerful. With her wrists locked in his grip like an iron vice, Zhu Huaguan inhaled deeply, catching the unmistakable scent of lovesickness heartbreak red. Young lady, you've truly been acknowledged by the lovesickness heartbreak red, he exclaimed, stunned. No wonder she had broken through his scent barrier. Xiao Wu, closest to him, could clearly see Zhu Huaguan's trembling form, an intense reaction triggered by extreme excitement. Everyone else dared not make a move, fearful for Xiao Wu's safety. With his sister in danger, Tang San should have acted. But he froze, a look of self-doubt on his face. Tang San knew more about the lovesickness heartbreak red than anyone, so he understood that the red glow around Xiao Wu just now wasn't the plant's protective aura. It had reacted because Zhu Huaguan's floral scent had provoked the king of all flowers into action. This meant Xiao Wu was no longer recognized by the lovesickness heartbreak red. Tang San's lips turned pale. He knew what this implied, yet he hoped he was wrong or that the lovesickness heartbreak red itself had changed. Zhu Huaguan's hand paused, his sharp nails less than an inch from Xiao Wu's neck. A mere twitch, and her life would be over. Zhu Zuqing and Ning Rongrong watched their friend in distress, too afraid to act. Senior Zhu, could you spare her life? A voice broke the tense silence. Shrek's team turned in shock, their eyes widening as they looked toward Chen Xien in the crowd. Hearing this, Zhu Douluo smiled, retracting his hand from Xiao Wu's neck. To everyone's astonishment, he had indeed let her go. Chen Xien, I hadn't noticed you here. Zhu Huaguan's gaze turned playful, fixing on Chen Xien. Clearly, he had already sensed Chen Xien's presence but had pretended not to. Chen Xien sighed as he stepped out of the crowd, reluctant to expose this connection. Afterward, when the Shrek team learned that the attempt on their lives had come from Spirit Hall, Chen Xien could already predict the fallout. The Shrek 7 would be bound to mistrust him, their suspicions and resentments toward him inevitably growing stronger. The Shrek team was utterly stunned. They could never have imagined that the powerful title Douluo who sought to eliminate them would be acquainted with Chen Xien. What was their relationship? Was Chen Xien aligned with their enemies, or was he originally part of those forces? Lord Yala was equally shocked. Could this young man be one of their own, perhaps a hidden ally embedded in the Heaven Do Empire, gaining trust to aid the Spirit Hall from within? A shiver of relief ran through him, grateful that he hadn't done anything rash toward this young man before. Zhu Zuqing and Ning Rongrong gazed curiously at Chen Xien, both anxious and doubtful. They hoped he wasn't too deeply entangled with these people and certainly not an ally of theirs. Old Chen, what's your connection to him? Daimyo Bai demanded loudly. Chen Xien ignored the question, instead asking Chrysanthemum Douluo if he could let Xiao Wu go. Chen lad, who is this young girl to you, that you're so concerned about her? Chrysanthemum Douluo asked, intrigued. Earlier, Chen Xien had deliberately avoided revealing their connection when Chrysanthemum Douluo arrived. But now, he had stepped forward for this girl, sparking further curiosity. The Shrek team stood silent, watching the exchange, even Chen Xien daring not to make a move, as Xiao Wu's life rested in their hands. Chen Xien remained silent, unsure how to answer. A friend? Classmate? The answer likely wouldn't satisfy the other. Chen lad, don't worry, Chrysanthemum Duoluo said, eyes filled with longing. I've spent my life searching for the yearning heartbroken red. Today, I merely wish to see it up close. His voice was sharp and grating, his tone refined yet chilling. Chen Xien nodded respectfully. Thank you, Chrysanthemum Senior. As he finished, he prepared to reach for Xiao Wu, knowing that once he touched her, the advantage would be his. Not so fast, Chrysanthemum Duoluo interrupted, gripping his wrist and turning towards Xiao Wu with hopeful eyes. If I had the yearning heartbroken red, I could reach that level as well. Young lady, may I see it? His gaze was reverent, and though he could have taken it by force, he showed no sign of doing so. Chen Xien sighed inwardly, this was exactly what he feared. If the yearning heartbroken red didn't recognize Chrysanthemum Duoluo as its owner, Xiao Wu's spirit beast nature would be exposed. Chen Xien also noticed the potential danger, his hand hiding a poison needle, ready to strike at the slightest threat. He had only one chance and couldn't afford to miss. Xiao Wu, unable to refuse the intense gaze of the tidal Duoluo, reluctantly agreed. She reached into her clothing and produced a vibrant, blood-red flower that shimmered with golden red hues. Simultaneously, a faint aura that didn't belong to a human emanated from her. Lord Iala, a level 89 Contra, immediately detected the abnormality. Chrysanthemum Duoluo, however, was entranced by the yearning heartbroken red, captivated by its beauty. Everything else faded away as he lost himself in the allure of the flower, oblivious to his surroundings. Chen Xien signaled Xiao Wu urgently to put the flower away before Chrysanthemum Duoluo regained his senses. Chen Xien broke into a cold sweat, his body tensed as he watched Chrysanthemum Duoluo's every move. Not fully understanding Chen Xien's gesture, Xiao Wu nonetheless tucked the flower away. Chrysanthemum Duoluo snapped out of his trance, still lost in admiration. Indeed, a supreme treasure among immortals. I apologize for any offense to your dignity. He then bowed deeply towards Xiao Wu with utmost respect, surprising everyone present. Chen Xien let out a sigh of relief. Chrysanthemum Duoluo had been so captivated that he'd failed to notice the anomaly. Although the Shrek team didn't fully understand what had just transpired, the fact that Xiao Wu was safe was all that mattered. Lord Iala cast a suspicious gaze at Xiao Wu, recalling the strange aura that had briefly appeared but had since faded. Chrysanthemum Duoluo sighed, feeling a sense of regret. Despite a lifetime of searching, he hadn't obtained the yearning heartbroken red. Yet, seeing its beauty up close, he had no regrets. Lord Iala, you may handle the others as you wish, but this young girl and this young man are not to be touched. After all these years, a legendary immortal herb has chosen a master. I am willing to protect her always, Chrysanthemum Duoluo declared, his eyes brimming with devotion. The yearning heartbroken red could only recognize the purest love, without a hint of impurity. Seeing how much Chen Xien cared for this girl, Chrysanthemum Duoluo surmised they were likely a pair. Chen Xien watched him with a bemused look, finding Chrysanthemum Duoluo's understanding of the legendary flower somewhat naive. Lord Iala, on the other hand, was growing frustrated. First, he'd been thwarted by Dragon Duke and Snake Granny, then blown away by Chrysanthemum Duoluo, and now finally had the chance to act. Enough talk? Who's coming to die first? He shouted, golden spirit power surging from his body, forming a massive golden bird. The Shrek team braced themselves, with Daimyobai prepared to fight to the death. Chrysanthemum Senior, could you hold off for a moment? Just as the clash seemed inevitable, Chen Xien spoke up. Lord Iala immediately halted, wary of another mishap with Chrysanthemum Duoluo. Chen lad, do you still have something to say? Chrysanthemum Duoluo asked, looking at him curiously. Chen Xien glanced at Zhu Zuking, then at Daimyobai, before saying, these people are my companions. Could you let them go? The Shrek team looked at Chen Xien, astonished. Was he actually pleading for them? Ma Hongjun and Oscar were moved, grateful for his intervention, as they had little experience with such powerful enemies and were thoroughly intimidated. Daimyobai stood there in shock, finding it hard to believe that the man who'd once competed for his fiancée would now speak up for him. Tyrone scoffed, unimpressed, unwilling to show any gratitude. He was a warrior who preferred to die on the battlefield than to surrender. This is a serious matter, Chen lad. Don't overstep. Chrysanthemum Duoluo declined Chen Xien's request. Chen Xien wasn't disappointed, it was what he'd expected. But at least he had tried. If he had only asked for Zhu Zuking's safety, Chrysanthemum Duoluo might have agreed, but that would draw unwanted attention, and Zhu Zuking likely wouldn't appreciate it. Chen lad, I've spoken to His Holiness about you. The Pope is very impressed with you, and when you arrive at Spirit City, you can bring your girlfriend to join the Spirit Hall. Chen Xien's expression shifted, hearing Chrysanthemum Duoluo's voice in his mind, realizing that the Duoluo had mistakenly assumed Xiao Wu was his girlfriend. Lord Iala, proceed. Kill them all, Chrysanthemum Duoluo commanded, growing impatient with the delay. You dare. Just as Lord Iala prepared to strike, a commanding voice echoed from the sky. Simultaneously, a dark ripple distorted the air before the Shrek team, and a man with black hair and black armor stepped forward. Chrysanthemum Duoluo's expression darkened. It's you, Bone Rong. Grandpa Bone. Ning Rong Rong exclaimed, her eyes shining with joy upon seeing the familiar figure. Wrong. Apologies for my delay, a warm voice replied. Wrong. Your sword grandpa is here a bit late, a bold voice called from the sky. In the sky, a silver-haired man descended with a deafening boom, riding a flying sword that streaked downward, landing between the two opposing sides. Grandpa Sword? Grandpa Bone? You're finally here. Ning Rongrong's heart surged with relief as the arrival of her two grandfathers granted her an overwhelming sense of security. The Shrek team could finally breathe a sigh of relief, their tense nerves easing. With these two powerhouses here, they were safe at last. How did these two old fossils show up? Chrysanthemum Duluo muttered, his expression grave. Their arrival brought him immense pressure. Sword Duluo and Bone Duluo were both elite Super Duluo, and facing even one of them alone would be challenging. Little monsters, my apologies for the delay. From the end of the road, yet another figure appeared, a black-haired man clad in dark green armor, striding confidently toward them. Old monster! Chen Xien exclaimed in joy, unable to hide his excitement. It was Poison Duluo Dugubo, another formidable title Duluo known for his vast collection of rare medicinal herbs. Chrysanthemum Duluo, did you really think Shrek Academy was defenseless? Poison Duluo spoke with authority as he approached, hands behind his back. Ma Hongjun couldn't contain his excitement. Another title Duluo had come to support them. Now, who would dare bully Shrek? Old Poison, since when did you become this academy's lackey? Chrysanthemum Duluo's expression darkened, his voice turning icier. Sword Duluo and Bone Duluo were already too much to handle, and now Dugubo joined them, leaving him without a single chance of victory. From a distance, Lord Yala hid, too terrified to reveal himself. Three title Duluo were here. Any rash move on his part would mean instant death, and not even Chrysanthemum Duluo could save him. Who are you calling a lackey? I'm Shrek Academy's honored elder, and Chen Xien is my brother. You lay a finger on him, and I'll kill you myself. Dugubo retorted with a confidence that made Chrysanthemum Duluo flinch. Sword Duluo, wielding the 7-kill sword, pointed it directly at Chrysanthemum Duluo. Yu Guan, you're a title Duluo, yet here you are bullying kids. Aren't you afraid of becoming a laughingstock? Chrysanthemum Duluo's face grew darker, his sharp voice taking on a menacing tone. Chen Xien, Gu Rong, are you really going to meddle? You should know what happens when you cross us. Chrysanthemum Duluo, who are you trying to scare? Less talk, more fight if you dare. Bone Duluo Gu Rong taunted, unfazed by the threat. No matter how powerful the spirit hall was, could they really wipe out the entire Heaven Do Empire? So, the 7 treasure glazed tile clan has decided to oppose us. Chrysanthemum Duluo, though seething, hesitated to make a move. As he uttered these words, thoughts of retreat started forming in his mind. Even if Ghost Duluo arrived, they would still be outmatched against the opposing side's power. We 3 upper clans stand together, Chrysanthemum Duluo. Did you really not know that? Ning Fengzi entered the scene, dressed simply yet elegantly, accompanied by the crown prince, Shui Qinghe. Holding the radiant 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda, with 7 spirit rings glowing at his feet, Ning Fengzi made their position clear. Chrysanthemum Duluo's fighting spirit vanished. With such a strength imbalance, even with Ghost Duluo, they stood no chance. This time, I'll concede. Lord Yala, let's go. Chrysanthemum Duluo tossed a small orb to the ground, releasing a thick cloud of smoke that quickly engulfed the area. Dugubo waved his sleeve, casting a strong wind that scattered the smoke, but Chrysanthemum Duluo and Lord Yala had already vanished without a trace. This operation by the Spirit Hall was a complete failure. Despite deploying a large team of Spirit Masters, including 2 title Duluo, they failed to accomplish the Pope's task. Watching them leave, Chen Xien sighed deeply, feeling a complicated mix of emotions. In a short time, 4 title Duluo had gathered here, beings far beyond his reach. The immense power displayed by these 4 left him feeling small and insignificant, realizing that against such strong opponents, even his hidden weapons were useless. They lost their effectiveness against anyone above the Spirit Duluo level. Clan leader Ning, Senior Poison, thank you for coming to our aid. Flender and Lu Erlong, having returned from another battlefield, bowed deeply to the 4. With Chrysanthemum Duluo gone, all black-clad fighters and weapons were cleared from the area, allowing them to breathe freely again. Both Flender and Lu Erlong felt a lingering sense of fear. Without Ning Fengzi and Dugubo's intervention, the children would have likely been in grave danger. No need to thank me. Little Tang is my brother, and besides, I'm an honored elder of Shrek. This is my duty. Dugubo waved off their gratitude, deeming it unnecessary. With his usual elegance, Ning Fengzi replied, we were here to protect the crown prince, and since we weren't far, it was only natural to look after the children. Sword Grandpa and Bone Grandpa would never let harm come to our precious Rong. Sword Duluo Chen Xien added, plainly stating it was unnecessary to thank him. Dad, if Grandpa Sword and Grandpa Bone had arrived even a bit later, you'd be arranging my funeral. Ning Rong scolded, still shaken from the close call. Ning Fengzi chuckled warmly, patting her head. Silly girl, your grandpas were keeping an eye on everything from the start. How could they ever let anything happen to you? The Shrek team collectively realized the truth, somewhat annoyed, as it seemed their suffering had been part of the plan. Chen Xien observed quietly, aware of how cunning these elders were. They had likely monitored his every move all along. Chen Xien, thanks for saving Xiao Wu earlier. Chen Xien approached, surprising everyone with his expression of gratitude. Chen Xien was taken aback, as it was the first time Tang San had ever addressed him directly. He wondered if this gratitude was genuine. As a member of Shrek, Xiao Wu is my friend, too. No need for thanks. Chen Xien dismissed it with a casual wave. Sword Duluo approached, his gaze fixed on Chen Xien. So, you're Chen Xien? Rong has mentioned you, and seeing you today, you are indeed impressive. His expression remained stern and serious. By the way, Rong said you know Chrysanthemum Duluo Yuguan. What's your connection? Sword Duluo asked, his tone nonchalant, though his intent was clear. So, it's come to this, Chen Xien thought, tightening up as he expected the question. He knew there was no use lying to such powerful figures, they'd see right through him. I encountered Chrysanthemum Duluo in the Stardo Great Forest when they were taking students to hunt spirit beasts. Chen Xien explained, recounting the events truthfully. Sword Duluo scrutinized his expression closely, finding no sign of deception. For the moment, he seemed satisfied, advising Chen Xien to rest before moving on. Meanwhile, Tang San approached Ning Fengzi and the Crown Prince to ask questions. Clan leader Ning, who exactly attacked us? I want to know who's behind this so we can repay this humiliation in the future. Daimyobai joined in, clenching his fists. Clan leader Ning, please reveal the faction behind these people. Like Tang San, he was unafraid of conflict, and Shrek's philosophy had always been that avoiding confrontation meant weakness. The humiliation of today would be repaid 100-fold in time. After a brief look to the Crown Prince, Ning Fengzi, receiving a nod from Shueqinghe, decided to share the truth with them. Even if he hadn't, Dugubo would eventually inform Tang San, so there was little point in hiding it. What? The Spirit Hall. Shrek's team was stunned, their anger rising. Tang San's face turned dark, his expression murderous. Through Shueqinghe, he had already learned that years ago, his father, Tang Hao, had been pursued by the Spirit Hall, forcing the Clear Sky clan into hiding. The Spirit Hall. One day, we'll settle this once and for all. Tang San vowed, his voice filled with loathing. After their failed mission, Chrysanthemum Duluo and Ghost Duluo led their forces back to Spirit City. The grand operation, involving so many people, had ended in failure, and Chrysanthemum Duluo could already imagine the Pope's punishment awaiting them. Sir, don't you think there's something unusual about that girl? Lord Diala finally voiced his doubts. Earlier, when Xiao Wu took out that rare flower, he had sensed a strange aura, something that faded beyond a certain distance but grew stronger up close. At the time, Chrysanthemum Duluo had been so enchanted by the yearning heartbroken red that he'd missed the odd detail. Now, with Lord Diala's reminder, he recalled a faint, non-human aura. Sir, could she be a spirit beast transformed into a human? Lord Diala speculated boldly. Chrysanthemum Duluo shook his head, uncertain. There were a few things that didn't add up. 100,000-year spirit beast in human form should only be able to fully conceal their aura upon reaching level 60, which Xiao Wu clearly hadn't attained. If Xiao Wu were truly a spirit beast, he, as a title Duluo, would have sensed it immediately, making Lord Diala's theory unlikely. Let's not overthink it, Ghost Duluo suggested. We'll simply report the girl's situation to the Pope. It's up to her to decide if the girl is a spirit beast or not. We just follow orders. Meanwhile, after the ambush, the Heaven Do army did not retreat but continued onward. The knights guarded over 20 carriages, resuming their journey towards Spirit City. Along the way, Crown Prince Shueqinghe demonstrated an impressive level of command, organizing the troops efficiently, treating injured horses, repairing carriages, and clearing the battlefield. The black-clad attackers had mostly used defensive tactics to buy time to target Tang San, so Heaven Do's casualties weren't significant, allowing the group to proceed with a force of about 1,000 soldiers. However, the atmosphere was tense, especially for Tang San, who was deeply unsettled. From Ning Fengzi, he had learned that the attackers, including the title Duluo, had been there specifically to eliminate him. Tang San was now a marked target. The Spirit Hall's failed attempt was just the beginning. While they could try again and again, he only had one life to lose. Sai, let's take a walk, Daimyobai said, making space for Tang San to process everything, as the rest of the Shrek team left the carriage to give him some quiet. Third brother. Xiao Wu approached, hoping to console Tang San, but he brushed her off with perfunctory responses. The yearning heartbroken red's rejection of Xiao Wu was a sign only he understood. Doubts plagued Tang San, and the possibility of a painful truth loomed over him. Exhausted, he needed time alone, away from Xiao Wu. Inside the carriage, Tang San reflected on his situation. Facing a spirit Duluo had shown him how weak he truly was. His prized hidden weapons had proven useless. For years, he had managed to stay in control, but since meeting Chen Xien, setbacks had piled up, culminating in today's near-death encounter. Tang San felt powerless for the first time, realizing how much he needed strength. Though he was now level 40, his blue-silver grass spirit was advancing slowly. Currently, he could still rely on Tang Sect techniques, but he feared that beyond level 50 or 60, his spirit might become obsolete. He opened his left hand, gazing at the small silver hammer floating above it, wondering if he should focus on cultivating the clear sky hammer instead. Outside the carriage. Thank you for today, Chen Xien. Xiao Wu approached Chen Xien to express her gratitude. Surprised by this rare display of politeness from her, Chen Xien had not expected it. In truth, he sought no reward, only wishing to protect Xiao Wu and, indirectly, his child. Before the child was born, he would let nothing harm her. No need to thank me. It's my duty. Chen Xien's gaze shifted to her stomach as he solemnly vowed, as long as I'm here, no matter the strength of our enemies, even if a god appears, I won't let either of you be harmed. His words made Xiao Wu freeze momentarily, a trace of panic flickering in her eyes. Be both of us? What are you talking about, Chen Xien? There's no both of us. She forced a strained smile, trying to play it off. Chen Xien's deep gaze fixed on her in silence. Having come this far, he would not hide the truth any longer. Gradually, an unspoken understanding seemed to settle between them, shifting their relationship. Where there had once been animosity, a strange harmony was beginning to take shape. Xiao Wu attempted to appear calm, but under Chen Xien's intense stare, her resolve faltered. I just remembered, I need to find Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing. Xiao Wu quickly excused herself and left to find the other girls. Chen Xien sighed, saying nothing as he turned and returned to his carriage. Over the next few days, the Heaven Do army continued its journey. After 3 days, they crossed a rocky terrain into a new landscape. The tense atmosphere among the soldiers gradually eased, and with Shui Qinghe and Ning Fengzi's guidance, the troops regained their morale and trust in their leaders. On the 5th day, Chen Xien remained in his carriage, meditating. He practiced new techniques using his Manjikyo Sheri Non, integrating its powers with his spirit abilities. Today, his spirit power advanced, reaching level 49, just one step away from level 50. The sacred herb with 9 fruits from red earth had provided a steady stream of energy, constantly replenishing his spirit power. The toxic tea forced upon him by that woman had also become fuel for the sacred herb, benefiting him rather than harming him. The potency of the poison had turned into nourishment for the herb, which continued to supply him with power even now. Chen Xien estimated that, with continued training, he could reach a breakthrough within 10 days. Reaching level 50 was a critical milestone for spirit masters. Even the most gifted saw their cultivation speed slow beyond this point. Following the natural pace of cultivation would mean waiting years, perhaps even a decade, to reach the title Douluo level. He would need external support to achieve his goals faster. His hopes were now pinned on the reward from the system. Achieving level 50 would grant him a significant reward package, and based on past rewards, he expected this one to contain 5 items. At that moment, Jiangzhe returned and sat beside him naturally, showing no hint of shyness. I just asked, and Dean Flender said that in about 5 or 6 days, we'll reach Spirit City. Time flew by, and 6 days later, the Heaven Do army finally arrived at its destination Spirit City after trekking through deserts, mountains, and rocky terrains. Rumor had it that Spirit City wasn't very large, roughly a fifth of the size of Heaven Do City. However, as the Heaven Do army stood before it, they were awestruck by its imposing aura, evoking the same sense of wonder as Heaven Do City. 1,000-strong force stood outside Spirit City, gazing up at its towering granite walls. Rising 120 meters high and 30 meters thick, the walls stood like a grand mountain, creating a breathtaking sight. There were 6 massive walls encircling Spirit City, hinting at a much more expansive area than one would imagine. Within those walls, civilians found protection from the city's formidable defenses. Tang San, fascinated by geography and formations, was captivated by Spirit City's design. The 6 walls, all crafted from granite, conveyed a sense of grandeur and power. If the walls alone were this impressive, then the Pope's palace at the city's peak was even more extraordinary. Situated on the highest point, it seemed to pierce the heavens with its spire, exuding an imposing aura of dominance over all. Upon entering Spirit City, the different academies were each led by a Spirit Hall bishop to their respective lodgings. A red-robed bishop guided the Shrek Academy team to a nearby hotel. The Shrek team behaved respectfully, as guests on foreign ground. Even Tang San, who despised Spirit Hall, remained unusually quiet. Strange, why are there so few ordinary people here? Daimyobai commented in confusion as they walked. He wasn't alone in his observation. The Shrek team noticed that ordinary civilians were scarce, while spirit masters were common, although most had relatively low spirit power. Qin Ming was equally surprised. When he spotted a restaurant staffed by spirit masters, including some who had reached the rank of Grand Master, over level 20, he could hardly believe it. Flender and Lu Erlong noticed this too and found it puzzling, even regrettable. In Heaven Do City, a Grand Master wouldn't just work as a waiter, they would be respected, potentially holding a command position in the military or working at an intermediate academy. It seemed wasteful to have them doing such menial work. The Shrek members were equally perplexed, instinctively feeling disdain towards Spirit Hall, perceiving them as exploiting their spirit masters without properly valuing them. Only around 20,000 spirit masters existed on the entire continent, and becoming a Grand Master was an accomplishment among common people. What a waste of talent. These spirit masters should be cultivating, not working in restaurants, Daimyobai sighed. Qin Ming nodded in agreement. They could be making breakthroughs if they invested this time in training. The restaurant staff's practiced movements suggested they had been working there for a long time. For Daimyobai and Qin Ming, it seemed a complete inversion of priorities. Had the staff trained instead, their achievements could have been far greater than just Grand Master. Chen Xien disagreed with their perspective. Yes, spirit resources shouldn't be squandered like this, but this is Spirit City, not Heaven Do. The system here is different, and spirit masters are more common here. Daimyobai frowned, displeased at being contradicted in front of others. Tang San's eyes grew cold as he glared at Chen Xien, feeling that his words sounded like an excuse for Spirit Hall, which irritated him deeply. Chen, what are you implying? Flender's voice was calm, yet carried a hint of sternness. He had little fondness for Spirit City after their recent attack by Spirit Hall. Chen Xien replied nonchalantly, just stating the facts. Tang San's gaze turned icier. To him, Spirit City was synonymous with Spirit Hall, and Chen Xian's words sounded like a defense for them. Adding to this, his association with Chrysanthemum Douluo intensified Tang San's suspicion, causing him to despise Chen Xien further, suspecting him of being a spy for Spirit Hall. Unbothered, Chen Xien continued, Daimyo Qin Ming, you should know that Spirit Hall often awakens spirits for commoners, traveling to remote villages and helping children awaken their spirits for free. They even provide monthly stipends in gold soul coins. Naturally, these people grow up with a positive view of Spirit Hall, and if they join a force, Spirit Hall is their first choice. That's why there's no shortage of Spirit Masters here. The Shrek team fell silent, as they couldn't deny the truth in his words. Spirit City was indeed known as a holy land for Spirit Masters. Chen Xien observed the bustling city around him, filled with people whose smiles exuded happiness. Spirit City offers everyone the right to awaken their spirit and provides financial support. Ordinary citizens have the chance to become Spirit Masters. Without Spirit Hall, many children would never have the opportunity to become Spirit Masters and would remain in poor villages all their lives. Chen Xien turned to Tang San with a faint smile. Some people have received countless benefits from others, enabling them to grow stronger, yet only think about repaying kindness with hostility. It's hard to understand. Since tensions were already high, Chen Xien felt there was no need to hold back. Ma Hongjun and Oscar exchanged confused glances, scratching their heads in puzzlement, as they didn't catch Chen Xien's subtle jab at Tang San. Only Xiao Wu understood the underlying message, feeling that the jerk was mocking her third brother. Tang San's face darkened to an extreme as he stared at Chen Xien with a murderous gaze. His eyes were icy, devoid of emotion, and his voice was as cold as a glacier. What are you implying, Chen Xien? Tang San's expression was exceptionally grim. His teacher's recent death had already left him in a foul mood, and this thinly veiled insult stoked his anger further. The Shrek members stared at Tang San in surprise. His unusual rage and chilling killing intent were unlike anything they'd seen from him before. Chen Xien smirked, completely unafraid. Many might fear Tang San, but he didn't. After all, Tang San wasn't the only one with hidden weapons. Besides, Chen Xian's statement was true, and Tang San's reaction only proved it. Without Spirit Hall's free spirit awakening, Tang Hao wouldn't have allowed his son to become a spirit master, and 6-year-old Tang San would have never awakened his spirit. If it weren't for Spirit Hall's monthly gold soul coin stipends, Tang San wouldn't have been able to buy hidden weapon materials. It's just the truth, Chen Xien said calmly. Without mentioning names, he felt that some people's hypocrisy had been exposed, which was why they were so angry. You're asking for death. Tang San's fury erupted, his killing intent finally unleashed. To everyone's shock, Tang San lunged, pulling out his Zudge crossbow and aiming directly at Chen Xien's head. His strike was merciless, clearly intending to kill. The Shrek team never expected the normally calm and peaceful Tang San to suddenly attack Chen Xien, pulling out the powerful weapon, the Zudge divine crossbow. 9 arrows flew from the bowstring, gleaming with a deadly cold light, aimed at Chen Xien's head with lethal intent, leaving no room for escape. No one below the level of a Spirit King could withstand an attack from the Zudge divine crossbow. Even a level 50 Spirit King could be killed instantly without defense. Chidori flow. Chen Xien had already completed his hand signs. With a simple gesture, a wave of lightning erupted, arcs of electricity weaving together like a giant net descending upon the arrows. The 9 arrows shot forward rapidly, but as soon as they touched the lightning net, they lost their energy and clattered to the ground as useless scrap. Tang San's pupils shrank as he froze in shock. His prized hidden weapon had been rendered utterly ineffective. How was this possible? On the day they were attacked by Spirit Hall, he had led the 6 devils and wiped out 20 black-clad men with the Zudge divine crossbow, all of whom were above level 50. But Chen Xien had easily neutralized his hidden weapon, and he hadn't even summoned his martial spirit. This was incomprehensible for Tang San. Refusing to believe it, Tang San aimed the Zudge divine crossbow at Chen Xien again, convinced his hidden weapon was supreme. Think I don't exist? A black-robed bishop suddenly appeared in front of Tang San. With a wave of his hand, he seized the Zudge divine crossbow and grabbed Tang San's wrist. I am the enforcer here. Private fights are prohibited within Spirit City. If you have grievances, take them to the life and death stage. Next time, you will be expelled, the bishop said coldly. His body expanded, exuding an intimidating aura, with a massive beast spirit appearing behind him, towering like a skyscraper. 8 spirit rings appeared beneath his feet, the optimal configuration, a spirit Douluo with 8 rings. Though speaking to Tang San, his gaze was fixed on the 3 Shrek Academy teachers, observing them carefully. Instead of stopping the conflict, they allowed their students to fight without intervening. Feeling guilty under his gaze, Flender quickly stepped forward with a stern expression, saying, Xiao San, Chen Xien is your partner. Regardless of any grievances, this kind of fighting is unacceptable. Apologize to Chen Xien. The Shrek team looked at Tang San in confusion. Typically calm and good-natured, what had made him so furious? Chen Xien frowned. Tang San had aimed to kill just now, calling it a squabble didn't do it justice. This was clearly Flender trying to minimize the issue. Chen Xien remained silent. It didn't matter. Since leaving Heaven Do, he had no plans to return to Shrek Academy. After the Spirit Master tournament, he would implement his long-prepared plans. Seeing the teachers step in, the black-robed bishop released Tang San and left, disappearing from view. Moments later, Tang San's face turned pale, and he coughed up blood, staggering as he nearly fell. Xiao San, Daimyobai, quick on his feet, caught him just before he hit the ground. Sanji, are you alright? Xiao Wu, Ma Hongzhen, Ning Rongrong, and others crowded around, concerned. At that moment, Tang San's face was ashen, blood covering his mouth as he appeared weak and drained. Zhu Zuqing glanced at Chen Xien in the distance, suspecting he might have done something to Tang San. Chen Xien shrugged, showing he was innocent. He didn't have the skill to harm someone from afar. Lu Erlong took Tang San's wrist, checked his pulse carefully, then relaxed, saying, "It's not serious, just some internal injuries." The Shrek team breathed a collective sigh of relief, relieved that it wasn't severe. Xiao San, did that despicable man do something to you? Flender's expression darkened, angered at the idea of anyone tampering with his students. Tang San nodded, his face devoid of color, appearing feeble. Wiping the blood from his mouth, his gaze grew cold as he swore, "Spirit Hall, I, Tang San, vow that I will not rest until I see you destroyed." The incident had deepened his hatred for Spirit Hall. Ruthless, unscrupulous, using power to bully. What strength was that? If he grew strong enough, it would spell the end of Spirit Hall. The red-robed bishop frowned in displeasure, his tone cold as he said, "Your student fought privately within Spirit City, which is forbidden." The enforcer showed restraint and merely disciplined him lightly. According to protocol, he wasn't obligated to speak further, but he couldn't hold back. "Destroy Spirit Hall? With you? Ridiculous." The red-robed bishop sneered with disdain. He turned and left, uninterested in engaging further with the academy. To him, these people were self-righteous, only viewing things from their perspective without considering the cause. "What did you say?" Lu Erlong, her fiery temper boiling, was furious at the mockery, but the red-robed bishop was already gone, leaving her no outlet for her anger. Tang San's gaze grew colder, his hatred for Spirit Hall deepening as he thought of the arrogance and brutality of their enforcers. When the black-robed bishop touched him, an overpowering soul force had surged through his wrist, locking his limbs and rendering him helpless. He had resisted, but in vain. The force was overwhelming, dispersing his own spirit power and damaging his organs. Tang San reached into his belt, pulling out a few tender green leaves, quickly consuming them before sitting down to recover. The effect was immediate. His pale face regained some color, and his injuries gradually began to heal. The Shrek team remained silent, knowing the efficacy of Tang San's methods, while Flender and Lu Erlong stood guard beside him. Chen Xien's eyes brightened, recognizing the potency of those leaves, which exuded a dense life aura, indicating they were likely precious immortal herbs. Though he had never seen Tang San use such items before, it seemed he'd prepared plenty of elixirs and immortal herbs for this journey. When Tang San took out the leaves, Chen Xien felt a faint tremor from the supreme plant rooted within his own soul world, which seemed to crave those herbs. He understood that for this mysterious plant to grow quickly, it would need to absorb a variety of immortal herbs, which would also provide him feedback in soul power. This extraordinary plant had been in his body for 3 months now, yet it showed no signs of maturity. Chen Xien surmised it would need to consume many such herbs to grow and mature faster. "I need to find a way to get my hands on that belt," he muttered to himself with a mischievous glint. Chen Xien felt no guilt. Their hostility had been evident since their confrontation in Heaven Do. Tang San had wanted to kill him for some time. After all, Tang San had just attempted to kill him. In a similar situation, a spirit master of equal level wouldn't even have time to react, let alone defend, and would be killed. Moreover, the matter of Xiao Wu's pregnancy wouldn't stay hidden for long. When Tang San found out, he would surely go into a rage and do anything to get rid of him. "What's yours is mine, and what's mine is still mine," Chen Xien thought, already preparing to take action under the guise of sharing treasures. After the red-robed bishop stormed off, the Shrek team had no choice but to find their assigned hotel on their own. With Tang San injured, Flender no longer insisted that his star student apologize to Chen Xien. He'd only suggested it as a formality, and seeing Tang San's weakened state left him unwilling to press the matter. After about an hour, the team finally located their exclusive hotel, where several other academies had already checked in. The hotel was expansive, covering over 2,000 square meters and 6 stories high, complete with large courtyards at the front and back, a pool, gardens, and pavilions. It resembled more of an estate than a hotel. 2 female staff members approached with warm smiles, guiding the Shrek team to their rooms. Finally, a proper rest. "The journey has been exhausting," Ma Hongzhen sighed, stretching his arms. After more than 10 days on the road, he was worn out and had even lost some weight. The others were just as weary, eager to rush into their rooms after not having a good night's sleep since leaving Heaven Do City. Xiao Wu and Ning Rongrong declared that they needed a bath before indulging in a good night's sleep. "Chen, you can room with Tai Long," Flender suggested. The rooms provided by Spirit Hall were limited, with each being shared by 2 people. Huang Yuan and Jingling shared one, while Zhongzhu and Zhu Zuqing were assigned together, leaving Tai Long without a roommate. "No need. I'll just get a room for myself," Chen Xien replied, immediately heading downstairs to the reception. The cost was indeed steep. An extra 10 days required 300 gold soul coins, much higher than the standard rate. Chen Xien reached into his pocket but found it empty, suddenly remembering he'd left all his gold soul coins with his sister, Chen Yi, before departing. After giving the receptionist an awkward but polite smile, he turned to Ning Rongrong, who lent him 1,000 gold soul coins without hesitation, saying he didn't need to pay her back as thanks for saving her life earlier. With his own room secured, Chen Xien could finally rest by himself. The next morning, bright and early, the Shrek 7 and the backup members were summoned to gather in front of the hotel. Dean, why so early? We haven't even had breakfast, Ma Hongjun grumbled, sporting a disgruntled expression. The sun hadn't even risen, and being called to assemble filled the group with complaints. Flinder, face stern, delivered a swift kick to Ma Hongjun's backside, chiding him, all you think about is eating. Show some ambition. Seeing this, the Shrek team quickly fell silent, no one daring to voice further complaints. Clearing his throat, Flinder said, in 3 days, the finals of the Continental Spirit Master Tournament begin. You must focus on training and avoid slacking off. The reminder jolted the group to attention. They realized they hadn't trained or engaged in any combat practice for over 10 days. Tang San quickly organized the team, saying, let's stick to the usual plan. Daimubai, you partner with Fatty and Xiao Rongrong and Zuking, team up as usual, everyone else can make their own arrangements. Everyone nodded in agreement. Finally, Tang San looked at Xiao Wu, asking, Xiao Wu, what level are you at now? Brother, I'm at level 39, but I feel I'm very close to reaching level 40, Xiao Wu replied, though her eyes betrayed a hint of unease as she tried to maintain composure. Tang San beamed, giving her an encouraging look. With her advancement, the entire original Shrek team would reach the Spirit Elder rank. Xiao Wu, keep it up, or you'll fall even further behind me. Daimubai and Oscar laughed. Chen Xien knew Xiao Wu was downplaying her progress. Her actual spirit power might have already surpassed Daimubai's. With the time and energy put into the rare crystal radish, her spirit power certainly wouldn't have stopped at level 39. In the following days, the Shrek team maintained a balance of adequate rest and focused on training and meditation, aiming to reach their peak condition. 2 days later, Xiao Wu excitedly announced, everyone, I've reached level 40. Xiao Wu, amazing job. Daimubai gave her a thumbs up. The Shrek team congratulated her, thrilled for her progress. Among the original 7, she had achieved this without using spirit herbs and had managed not to lag behind. Lu Erlong, ecstatic at the news, embraced Xiao Wu warmly, saying, my dear Xiao Wu, you're incredible. I'm so proud of you. Her face glowed with happiness. Since losing Grandmaster, she had often felt heartache and sadness, so this good news brought a glimmer of joy. Xiao Wu, before the tournament starts, let Teacher Erlong take you to hunt a spirit beast, Daimubai suggested. Everyone urged her to hurry and acquire her spirit ring, which would mean Shrek would have 8 spirit elders on their team. However, Xiao Wu's expression turned downcast. She didn't want to hunt spirit beasts. As a spirit beast in human form, she hated seeing her kind killed. Additionally, her method of obtaining spirit rings was unique and couldn't be revealed. Just as she began to find an excuse to refuse, Lu Erlong seized her hand, pulling her along excitedly, saying, perfect timing? I'll take you to hunt a spirit beast right now. My precious Xiao Wu, you're truly impressive. Oscar nudged Tang San, asking with a puzzled look, isn't having someone help hunt a spirit beast a good thing? Why does Xiao Wu look so reluctant? Tang San simply shook his head and smiled without answering. Dean Erlong, wait a moment. A sudden voice stopped Lu Erlong and Xiao Wu just as they were stepping out. Everyone looked over in surprise, seeing Chen Xien step forward. What did he intend to do? Lu Erlong frowned, though she paused and turned to him, her expression cool as she asked, Chen, what is it? Time was running short, with only a day and a half left to obtain Xiao Wu's spirit ring. I'd like to come along as well, Chen Xien replied. At these words, Tang San's gaze turned cold, barely suppressing a surge of killing intent. What was he planning by tagging along with Xiao Wu? Trying to steal the spotlight? Flinder furrowed his brow, walking over and saying, Chen, your priority should be training. Erlong can handle hunting a spirit beast alone. Dean, I need to acquire a spirit ring as well because I've reached level 50, Chen Xien explained calmly. He shared that his spirit power had already reached level 49 back in Heaven Do City and had finally broken through to level 50 just now. Chen Xien's tone was composed, as if this achievement was expected. Based on feedback from the Supreme Plant in his soul world, he'd anticipated this breakthrough within 10 days, and it had occurred on the 8th day. His calm words, however, struck the Shrek team like a bolt of lightning, leaving them stunned and unable to contain their shock. The Shrek 7 were in disbelief. The unexpected revelation had shaken them deeply, leaving them unable to recover. Zhu Zuking's lips parted slightly in astonishment. Although she'd always known Chen Xien was holding back, this result was still shocking. Chen, are you serious? Ma Hongjun asked in a daze, struggling to process the news. After all, they had trained intensely under Grandmaster's guidance and had even used immortal herbs, yet they'd only advanced 7 or 8 levels in over a year. Chen, are you joking? Have you really reached level 50? Flinder exclaimed, his jaw dropping in surprise as he realized his voice had risen up with the finals approaching. The Shrek team experienced a day of Duel celebrations that helped lift the somber mood. On the eve of the competition, Xiao Wu's spirit power broke through to level 40, a development everyone had expected. What came as a shock, however, was Chen Xien's announcement. A month ago, he had claimed his spirit power was only at level 41, and now he declared that he had reached level 50. How could anyone accept that? Advancing from level 41 to 50 in just over a month was beyond extraordinary, unheard of for any spirit master. At first, the Shrek members were skeptical, but Chen Xien dispelled their doubts by measuring his spirit power with a crystal ball, proving he had indeed reached level 50. Chen, I'm impressed. You're the real monster, Ma Hongzhan admitted, bowing his head in admiration. Everyone accepted the reality, albeit reluctantly. Though they had consumed celestial herbs, their spirit power had never surged so dramatically. Xiao Wu bit her lip lightly, staring at Chen Xien with a complex expression. Her mind raced, and a slight blush appeared on her cheeks as she seemed to recall something embarrassing. Zhu Zuking's expression turned peculiar as she glanced at Daimyu and then at Chen Xien, involuntarily comparing the two. She couldn't understand why she always made such comparisons during moments like these. Tang San remained silent, grappling with self-doubt. He had consumed 3 celestial herbs and tempered his body with the waters of the ice and fire yin-yang well, yet in a year, he had only advanced by 7 levels. He had never accepted Chen Xien, finding him arrogant, disrespectful, and defiant, a student who clashed with teachers and humiliated them. Yet this very person, whom Tang San looked down upon, had surpassed him by a staggering margin of 8 levels. Tang San gritted his teeth, unable to accept that someone who lacked respect for elders could grow to such heights. Excellent, very good. Flender finally spoke, breaking out of his astonishment with hearty laughter. He clapped Chen Xien on the shoulder. Xiao Chen, from now on, you're the ace of Shrek Academy. All eyes were on Chen Xien, and no one noticed Tang San's unusual reaction. Even Daimyu, who stood beside him, failed to see it. With a student reaching the level of Spirit King before graduating, Flender couldn't help but feel elated. It was an accomplishment he could boast about in the future, elevating Shrek Academy's reputation. Moreover, having a Spirit King on their team brought them one step closer to winning the Spirit Master tournament. Even the golden generation of the Spirit Hall, Hu Lina, Xiaoyu, and Yan, were only newly advanced Spirit Kings and were older than Chen Xien. Lu Erlong was equally stunned. She never expected that the quiet student from the advanced class would surpass her beloved goddaughter in talent. Chen Xien, modestly bowing to each person, finally turned to Lu Erlong and said, "Dean Erlong, shall we head out now?" Lu Erlong nodded, saying nothing further, and pulled the reluctant Xiao Wu along. With the morning light still fresh, she wanted to find a suitable spirit beast for Xiao Wu as quickly as possible. Chen Xien followed them, his pace quickening until he appeared 50 meters ahead, moving at Spirit King speed. Arcs of electricity crackled under his feet, creating a streak of energy as he vanished from sight. "Aren't you curious about how he advanced so quickly?" Daimyu voiced his doubt, eyebrows furrowing. The rest of the team snapped out of their amazement, realizing how unusual Chen Xien's rapid advancement was. "Yeah, Dean, when we joined as substitutes, Chen Xien was only at level 38, Tai Long added, implying that Chen Xien might have used unconventional methods. Tai Long knew Chen Xien well after 3 years together in the advanced class, where he had always seemed ordinary. But since joining Shrek, his growth had been meteoric. "Don't make baseless accusations, Tai Long. I trust Xian." Zhang Zhu snapped, glaring at him. Tai Long smirked. "Xian, you're calling him so affectionately. I suspected you two had something going on, and now I see it's true. You, stop spouting nonsense. We're not involved." Zhang Zhu's face flushed red, clearly embarrassed. Seeing her reaction, Zhu Zuking felt a pang in her heart, as if a needle had pricked her. She didn't know why, but there was a trace of bitterness inside her. "Enough, stop arguing," Flender interjected, unable to watch any longer. Headaches plagued him as arguments broke out, first between Tang San and Chen Xien, now between these two. None of his students seemed to stay out of trouble. "No more speculations. We'll ask Xiao Chen when he returns tomorrow. Now, get back to training," Flender commanded sternly, ending the discussion. The team knew Chen Xien had taken celestial herbs, so they didn't think the worst of him, though his rapid progress raised questions. Meanwhile, outside Spirit City, a vast forest co-managed by the Spirit Hall and various nations stretched out. This Spirit Beast forest, similar to Sunset Forest, was filled with creatures raised by generations of humans. Lu Erlong, Xiao Wu, and Chen Xien entered and exchanged brief words with the night guards, who let them pass without issue. The dense forest was rich with greenery, and the afternoon sun filtering through the leaves cast patches of light on the ground, making it stiflingly warm. Mountains and rivers crossed the land, overgrown with vegetation and ancient pines as thick as barrels, true centuries-old trees. The trio concealed their energy and ventured deeper, seeking a suitable spirit beast. It was said that the most powerful beasts here were 70 to 80,000 years old, none reaching the 100,000-year mark, making it far safer than the Stardow Forest. Xiao Wu walked absent-mindedly, head lowered in thought. Lu Erlong, focused on searching for spirit beasts and on high alert, didn't notice Xiao Wu's worried demeanor. "Stay here and don't wander off. I'm going to check that area," Lu Erlong instructed before vanishing into another part of the forest. Xiao Wu's eyes brightened as her gloom lifted. This was her chance. "I see a suitable spirit beast over there. I'll go check, she called, using her teleportation skill to disappear from sight. In an instant, Chen Xien was left alone. Everyone has their own secrets, he muttered, shaking his head. It seemed that each member of the 7 devils carried hidden thoughts. Evaluating himself, Chen Xien knew his physical and spiritual strength matched that of a spirit king, capable of handling spirit rings over 30,000 years old. Finding a 10,000-year beast isn't easy. I'll wait for them to return, he decided. Chen Xien wandered through the forest at a relaxed pace, heading in Xiao Wu's direction. Thanks to the flying thunder god mark he had placed on her, he could sense her location no matter the distance. Some things needed to be revealed at last. Spirit Beast Forest. Chen Xien sensed the marked location and walked along a shaded path. Fortunately, there were no large spirit beasts in this area, so there was little danger. Half an hour later, he reached a spot over 3 kilometers away and saw a bright pink figure sitting by a thicket of shrubs. Xiao Wu sat cross-legged, her body glowing with golden light, as if bathed in sunlight, radiating a shimmering brilliance. As expected, she had intentionally gone so far to condense a spirit ring without being discovered. Chen Xien leaned casually against a large tree, waiting for Xiao Wu to finish condensing her spirit ring. Meanwhile, he extended his wide-range perception to cover the surrounding 200 meters, allowing him to detect any movement in advance. She didn't even pick a safer place. He shook his head, somewhat speechless. Large beasts were known to appear in this part of the forest. On his way, he had encountered several 10,000-year spirit beasts, indicating they were nearing the forest's deeper areas. Too bad none of them suited me, Chen Xien muttered. This time, he was looking for a wind-type spirit beast to strengthen his wind-based spirit skills. Back when he absorbed an electric eel from the Stardow forest, it enhanced his lightning attribute spirit power by 2 or 3 levels. Harnessing the power of this world was essential for enhancing the potency of spirit skills. I wonder if her endurance limit has increased, Chen Xien murmured. A mysterious, ruby-like fruit had boosted his physical capabilities, and with the added benefit of lightning baptism, his tolerance for spirit rings had reached nearly 10,000 years. Xiao Wu had consumed that crystal carrot long ago, and her spirit power had surpassed level 40. With so much time having passed, he wondered if her body's endurance could handle a 10,000-year spirit ring. Chen Xien speculated that even if she couldn't reach the 10,000-year level, she might be capable of handling a 9,000-year spirit ring. Sitting on the grass, Xiao Wu radiated ripples of spirit power as her body glowed brilliantly, still condensing her spirit ring. Half an hour later, the glow around her body dimmed, withdrawing into her form, and the spirit power fluctuations faded, signaling the end of the process. Level 43. Xiao Wu's eyes sparkled with joy, a broad smile spreading across her face as she beamed with happiness. Congratulations. In an instant, her body tensed, a chill running down her spine as her joyful expression froze. Those 2 sudden, simple words were spoken plainly, but to her ears, they were like a demon's whisper, bone-chilling and frightening. Xiao Wu was scared. Her eyes, laced with fear, rigidly turned towards the source of the voice. There, in the branches of a tall tree, sat a fairly handsome young man, looking at her with a calm expression. Chen Xien, why is it you? Xiao Wu's pupils contracted in shock. She exhaled a breath of relief, but soon became wary, eyeing him with tension, mentally preparing herself for battle. Who else would it be? Chen Xien said, slightly exasperated. He had been standing guard for over half an hour, even chasing away a few minor spirit beasts in the process. Xiao Wu's face paled, cold from head to toe, as she asked nervously, Chen Xien, how long have you been here? Her voice trembled slightly, her body tensed further. A hint of pleading showed in her expression, hoping he had just arrived and hadn't witnessed her condensing the spirit ring. Regrettably, her hope was in vain. Reality was just what she feared. I arrived shortly after you began absorbing the spirit ring, Chen Xien answered truthfully. There was no reason to lie. Xiao Wu's face turned deathly white, her body shuddering violently. You saw everything. Chen Xien nodded, still slightly puzzled. Such a significant event would be impossible to ignore. At that moment, Xiao Wu felt as if she were facing an enemy, her gaze on Chen Xien changing. Revealing her identity as a spirit beast to a spirit master was disastrous, she knew this too well. Even the closest of people could turn on her. 100,000-year spirit ring and 100,000-year spirit bone. Who wouldn't be tempted by such a prize? Even if he couldn't absorb the spirit ring himself, passing on the information to a powerful individual would guarantee a substantial reward. What do you want? Xiao Wu clenched her fists, her voice strained and trembling. What do you mean? Chen Xien was momentarily stunned, then realized what she meant and said, are you referring to your spirit beast identity? If so, I've known for a while. You've known all along. Xiao Wu's eyes widened, the shock overwhelming. She quickly noticed a flaw. If he had known for so long, why hadn't he exposed her or informed a title Douluo, which would have brought him protection and rewards? Besides, didn't humans despise spirit beasts the most? If Chen Xien had known about her spirit beast identity for so long, why had he acted so differently towards her before? You're lying? If you really knew, you would have killed me for the 100,000-year spirit bone. Xiao Wu's body trembled as she backed away, refusing to believe his sweet words. No one could resist the allure of a 100,000-year spirit bone. Hearing this, Chen Xien laughed. This little girl, usually so naive, suddenly showed her intelligence at moments like this. Silly girl, don't overthink it. I've never intended to harm you. His smile faded as his expression turned serious. Men's words are deceitful, I don't believe you. Xiao Wu's face was tense, beads of sweat forming on her forehead as she stared at Chen Xien, her eyes full of vigilance. Her heart pounded, feeling insecure. She continued to step back to maintain distance from him. Do you think I need to lie to you? Chen Xien remained where he stood, avoiding any sudden movements that might alarm her. He activated his Manjikyo Sherinon, his blood-red eyes forming a yin-yang fish pattern as he said, since I unlocked these eyes, I've seen through your spirit beast identity. Xiao Wu halted, her expression conflicted, clearly hesitating. Chen Xian's words made sense, there was no reason for him to deceive her. Moreover, the power she felt from his eyes carried a chilling and formidable spirit power. Although she still didn't trust him completely, the fear in her heart subsided slightly. When he was still at the spirit ancestor level, he could take on the entire Shrek Academy by himself. Now, as a spirit king, if he wanted to harm her, she would have already been captured. Then, when did you find out? Xiao Wu asked, still wary despite being less frightened. Before the start of the Continental Advanced Spirit Master Tournament, Chen Xien admitted, choosing not to hide the truth any longer. He sighed softly, knowing it would take time for Xiao Wu to trust him again. Xiao Wu didn't believe him at first. Anger flickered across her face as she accused, you're lying? If what you say is true, then, why did you? You people hate spirit beasts the most. Why did you still? Her voice trailed off, growing quieter until it was barely audible. She knew this too well, which was why she feared exposing her spirit beast identity. If Sanji, Brother San, or her friends found out she wasn't human, would they still care for her? Or would they turn against her with weapons? Now that her identity was exposed, could she return to Sanji and the others? Tears welled in her eyes as painful thoughts flooded her mind. Just imagining Rong, Zhu Qing, and the others showing disgust or raising weapons against her made her heart ache terribly. She didn't want that to happen. Chen Xian's gaze softened, and he sighed. I never planned for things to end up this way. If I'd known those two fruits were dual cultivation fruits, I would never have let you eat one. Only today, after reaching level 50, had the system informed him that they were special fruits meant for dual cultivation. There was no premeditated plan to violate Xiao Wu, and he could swear to it. Xiao Wu said nothing, but the alertness in her eyes lessened. What's done is done, there's no point in discussing it further. Chen Xien was never one to shirk responsibility. He took a deep breath, eyes resolute as he looked at Xiao Wu with seriousness. I know you don't need me to take any responsibility, and perhaps deep down you even resent me. But you are now pregnant, and I must take responsibility for you and for the child. Xiao Wu's delicate frame trembled, her heart clenching. Staring at Chen Xien in shock, she said, You already knew. Her voice quivered, betraying disbelief. Chen Xien indeed knew everything. You know everything. Xiao Wu's mind went blank, and her heartbeat slowed for a moment. Her body trembled slightly, not a coincidence. Chen Xien really did know everything. On the day the Spirit Hall attacked the Heaven Do army, his words were somewhat suggestive, hinting that he had known for a very long time. Xiao Wu stood frozen in place, her mind blank, not knowing how to respond. Chen Xian's words reminded her and made her realize her selfishness. How painful would it be for her child to be born without a father? Xiao Wu had never met her own father from birth and grew up relying solely on her mother. Later, her mother was hunted down by the Spirit Hall, leaving her completely alone in this world. Having experienced hardship, she lacked a sense of security and craved familial love. She didn't want her unborn child to suffer as she did and wished to give her baby a happy life. That was why Xiao Wu was so tormented and resistant. She couldn't accept Chen Xien. Whenever she thought about accepting Chen Xien, the memory of that night resurfaced, the disgusting liquid, the pungent smell, the suffocating sensation. It felt as if it had happened just yesterday. She felt nauseous, her throat constricted as if it were clogged, and her stomach churned uncomfortably. On one hand, there was her child's happy childhood, and on the other, the man she rejected. Xiao Wu wished deeply that this man were her third brother, so she wouldn't have to make this difficult choice. Chen Xien could read all of Xiao Wu's conflicted emotions. He sighed, feeling heavy-hearted. He understood that, given Xiao Wu's ideals of purity, it would be hard for her to accept him after losing herself to him. It would take time to heal those wounds. No matter what, whatever you choose, I will respect you, Chen Xien said softly, offering the greatest respect he could. He didn't want Xiao Wu to make a painful decision. I don't have any family left in this world. You and the baby are now the ones I most want to protect. Whether you want me to or not, I won't let anyone hurt either of you, Chen Xien said with determination, making a solemn promise. For the sake of the child and the child's mother, what did it matter if he acted devoted? The trees swayed, and the sunset's glow filtered through the leaves, casting a golden light over the two of them. Xiao Wu's eyes were complex, her mind swirling. After hesitating for a long time, she spoke, Chen Xien, do you really not mind the child? She lowered her head, touching her stomach, her thoughts chaotic. Chen Xien was stunned. What kind of question was that? Who would dislike their own child? Why would I mind my own child? He truly didn't understand. No, you must promise. Xiao Wu was emotional and insistent on this matter. Chen Xien felt perplexed but still raised 3 fingers and swore to the sky, if I am not good to my wife and child, may I be struck by lightning. Then, thinking it wasn't enough, he added, I will never gamble or poison myself, if I do, may I be struck down. Who said I was your wife? If you keep talking nonsense, I'll tear your mouth apart. Xiao Wu's cheeks flushed red, her shame and anger apparent. She ignored the rest of his silly talk. Now it was Chen Xien's turn to be confused. What was going on? Wasn't her earlier question a step towards reconciliation? He had even felt a moment of happiness. I no longer have parents, and the child cannot go through what I did, Xiao Wu said, her eyes dim with sorrow, recalling painful memories. Looking at Chen Xien, her tone softened. Thank you for not rejecting the baby, Chen Xien. Xiao Wu couldn't imagine what she would do if, one day, her future child naively asked, Mommy, why don't I have a daddy? How would she answer then? Only those who have been through hardship know the pain it brings. She didn't want her child to suffer the way she had. For this, she could compromise and try to accept the man who had violated her. Why would I ever reject my own child? Chen Xien smiled. A beautiful wife and an obedient, lovely daughter were all he had ever wished for. Don't get any ideas. I'm only compromising for the child's sake. I haven't accepted you yet. Xiao Wu lifted her chin and huffed at Chen Xien. Chen Xien heard the underlying meaning, if not now, then someday in the future? He looked at Xiao Wu with an odd expression. Was she implying he should try harder? Even in the future? No. Xiao Wu snorted, raising her head and chest to quash any of his thoughts. Chen Xien felt indifferent. He hadn't expected Xiao Wu to accept his presence anyway, it was enough that she didn't hate him. Chen Xien, do you really know nothing? Xiao Wu's expression turned strange as she eyed him with suspicion. Chen Xien was confused. What was she talking about? Xiao Wu walked to a large tree, turned her back to him, and sighed. For any soul beast that takes human form, before reaching level 60, their body and spirit power remain unstable. If they get pregnant during this time, the baby will inherit some soul beast characteristics. In other words, their child might be born with traits of the soft-bone charming rabbit. Men's words can be deceitful. Now that Chen Xien knew the details, how would he react, and what would he do? Xiao Wu's heart was tense, even though she had her back turned. When it came to the baby, every detail mattered. Her heart pounded as she waited nervously for Chen Xien's response. Truth be told, Chen Xien was quite affected when he heard this. No one would wish for their offspring to be half-beast, half-human. What should he do now? It wasn't that he couldn't accept it, he was just worried about the child's well-being. How would they deal with discrimination and odd stares? During Chen Xien's silence, Xiao Wu's heart raced, and her nervousness increased. She had already crumpled the edge of her dress with her fingers. Are you going to change your mind? Her voice trembled. Chen Xien said, You've misunderstood. I was just thinking that the child would eventually enter human society and face discrimination. I was worried about that. Don't lie to me. You really don't mind. Really? Chen Xien's expression was serious, giving her an affirmative answer. I was wondering if there might be an elixir that could stabilize your body and nourish the child, ensuring they are born strong, he murmured, solidifying his thoughts. He would need to ask around or hope for a reward that could help. Xiao Wu shook her head sadly. She also wished the baby would be free of soul beast traits and avoid strange looks. I don't know either. Third brother knows so much about medicinal herbs, maybe he could help. Even as she said this, she felt scared and didn't dare to ask, because that would mean Tang San would find out about her pregnancy. Don't worry, I'll find a way, Chen Xien said softly. He reached out his hand but quickly pulled it back. Xiao Wu blinked her long eyelashes but said nothing. After a moment of silence, Chen Xien acted as if nothing had happened and continued. Xiao Wu, I came to see you for another reason. Xiao Wu nodded gently, her demeanor softer, no longer so resistant to his presence. Chen Xien took a deep breath, his expression turning serious. I know I have no right to persuade you, and I shouldn't, but I can't just watch you and the baby get hurt. Xiao Wu, it's time to leave Spirit City. Let me take you away. Leave Spirit City. I can take you away. Xiao Wu, who had initially been gentle, suddenly grew cold. Shrek was like a family to her. With third brother, Rong, everyone else, Mother Erlong, and Boss Dai's group, it was a place filled with countless joys. Everyone there was important to her, especially third brother, Rong, and Zuking. Now, with Chen Xien asking her to leave, there was no way she could feel happy. Chen Xien, what do you mean? Xiao Wu's face was icy, clearly displeased. Shrek was her family, bringing her endless joy. Chen Xien was stunned, not expecting such a strong reaction. He tried to explain, I didn't mean it that way. Please, hear me out. I don't want to listen. Xiao Wu cut him off, her expression cold. The Shrek team had finally made it to the finals, this was a shared honor. To ask her to leave her companions at this crucial moment? Impossible? She didn't understand what Chen Xien was thinking and had started to dislike him. He'd once said he respected her, yet here he was. And who are you to me? What right do you have to tell me to leave? Xiao Wu's chest rose and fell as she grew more agitated. Chen Xien opened his mouth to explain but then fell silent. Yes, he'd been selfish, focused only on ensuring Xiao Wu's safety and ignoring her feelings. To her, the Shrek family carried so much emotion. Everyone treated her well, and even her godmother, Lu Erlong, filled her life with joy and happiness. Anyone in her shoes wouldn't want to leave a place that felt like home. Chen Xien sighed. From his perspective, all he wanted was for Xiao Wu and the child to be safe. Nothing else mattered. I know Shrek Academy means a lot to you, but to me, you are what matters most. So, I don't want you to be in danger. Champion titles, tournaments, joining powerful factions, none of it mattered to him anymore. All he cared about was the mother of his child. Xiao Wu was momentarily stunned, her expression softening slightly. Spirit City is filled with powerful individuals, more than 10 titled Douluos. If your identity as a spirit beast is exposed, the result would be certain death. Chen Xien's expression grew serious. He didn't need to say more. He knew that, with Xiao Wu's intelligence, she would understand his point. Chen Xien, thank you for your concern, but I'm not leaving Shrek Academy, Xiao Wu replied, having made her decision. Besides, her lovesick red grass could mask her spirit beast aura. There was no guarantee they would detect it. That's it then. Let's go back and find Teacher Erlong. Xiao Wu turned and left, heading toward their meeting place. Chen Xien sighed, taking a step forward and respecting her choice. Soon after, they crossed the mountains and returned to where they had split up. At that moment, Lu Erlong was frantically searching for them, almost digging up the ground in her worry. Mother Erlong, Xiao Wu called out. Lu Erlong turned, spotting the two of them walking toward her along a shaded path. Xiao Wu, where did you go? You scared me. She rushed over, pulling Xiao Wu into her arms. Her heart, which had been full of anxiety, finally settled. She had been searching everywhere, fearing that Chen Xien and Xiao Wu had been attacked by a spirit beast, filling her with guilt. You really scared me. Where on earth did you go? Xiao Wu's mind went blank, and she stammered, unsure how to respond. Teacher Erlong, we just came across a spirit beast that suited Xiao Wu, so we went to hunt it. Chen Xien improvised, rescuing her from the situation. Lu Erlong's eyes lit up with excitement, her hands shaking as she hugged Xiao Wu. Really, Xiao Wu? You got your 4th spirit ring. Xiao Wu was momentarily stunned but quickly nodded. Yes, Mom, I'm now a spirit ancestor with 4 rings. She gave Chen Xien a grateful glance. Am I starting to act like a sycophant? Chen Xien muttered, feeling a bit lost. After holding each other for a while, they finally let go. Lu Erlong's excitement was evident, happiness shining in her eyes. She was clearly proud of Xiao Wu. Finally, she turned to Chen Xien. Chen, you haven't obtained your spirit ring yet. What kind of spirit beast do you want? How about a 20,000-year-old one? Despite his talent, she thought 20,000 years was reasonable, as most people's 5th ring limit was around 12,000 years. Let's go for something over 30,000 years, Chen Xien suggested conservatively. His calm tone landed like a thunderbolt to others. Chen, do you even know what you're saying? Don't be reckless, Lu Erlong cautioned, clearly doubting him. Xiao Wu looked at him in exasperation. This was reckless. He was not considering his own life. Chen Xien, don't be foolish. Take it slow, she urged, her heart warming as she realized he wanted to grow stronger, likely to protect her. This kid, asking for a spirit beast over 30,000 years, do you even know that the limit for a 6th ring is around that? Lu Erlong scolded. Chen Xien was speechless. 30,000 years was already his conservative estimate. His current 4th ring was over 30,000 years old. Dean Erlong, Xiao Wu, don't worry. I wouldn't be foolish enough to risk my life for this. Hearing this, Lu Erlong hesitated. This kid was clever and didn't seem like the type to take unnecessary risks. Are you sure? There's no going back. I'm sure. Without further word, Lu Erlong headed deeper into the forest, searching for a wind-attributed spirit beast of 30,000 years. In this small forest, only Chen Xien and Xiao Wu remained, alone. Xiao Wu moved a bit away, deliberately keeping her distance. An hour later, as the sun set and darkness fell, night descended. A bright moon rose, casting a pale glow over the forest. Chen Xien gathered some dry wood and lit a fire, its light illuminating the area. With nightfall, the dangers of the spirit beast forest increased. They would have to stay here overnight. Another hour passed. In the dim forest, a dark figure appeared. Lu Erlong had returned, carrying a spirit beast. With a thud, a spirit beast was dropped in front of Chen Xien. Swiftwind Demon Wolf. He was surprised. It was a spirit beast similar to Feng Xiaoshan's spirit. This demon wolf had pale green fur, a large, 6-meter-long body, and a wolf's head as big as a water barrel. Its fangs shone coldly, as sharp as daggers, giving it a terrifying appearance. Quick, absorb it. I'll keep watch, Lu Erlong said, her voice weary. Chen Xien didn't hesitate. Pulling out his silver kunao, he swiftly beheaded the wolf. A black spirit ring appeared over the wolf's corpse, radiating the beast's aura. Chen Xien sat down cross-legged, pulling the 10,000-year spirit ring toward him, ready to absorb it. Under the night sky, a bright moon cast a soft, hazy glow over the soul beast forest. Flames flickered in the area, crackling as Lu Erlong occasionally added firewood to the campfire. Chen Xien sat beneath a large tree, facing a gale demon wolf, absorbing its soul ring. In his spiritual world, the spirit of the deceased demon wolf appeared, manifesting as a ghostly form before him. The Gale demon wolf, over 30,000 years old, had a large, eerie green pelt. It bared its fangs at him, its wolf eyes as cold and sharp as daggers. Chen Xien activated his Manjikyu Sharinon, and instantly, his spiritual world filled with a cold, sinister soul power, reaching every corner. This pair of eyes held a natural advantage over soul beasts, nearly godlike here, capable of subduing even 50,000-year-old soul beasts. After half an hour, the wolf's body ceased emitting any soul power, completely lifeless. Chen Xien slowly opened his eyes, exhaling a deep breath. He had successfully absorbed the soul ring. Lu Erlong was astonished. He had managed to do it so quickly, almost effortlessly. This was a soul beast of over 30,000 years, something a capable soul emperor could barely handle as a sixth ring. In a sense, this young man already possessed a hint of soul emperor strength. Xiao Wu parted her lips slightly, marveling at his talent. It seemed even more remarkable than Tang San's. Chen Xien sat on the ground, carefully feeling the attributes and boosts granted by the Gale Demon Wolf. As I suspected, it's because of that rare plant, he thought. He had already guessed this, and now it was confirmed. The 32,000-year-old Gale Demon Wolf, after absorption, had its soul ring's age boosted to 36,000 years, just like before. When he had absorbed his fourth soul ring in the Stardow Forest, that soul beast hadn't been anywhere near 10,000 years, but it had reached that level upon absorption. At that time, Chen Xien had suspected that either the Mangekyu had an unknown power or that it was due to the strange fruit and plant he'd encountered. Now, it was confirmed that the plant rooted in the Red Earth world was truly miraculous, a real fairy herb. What if I consumed all 9 fruits, he murmured, entertaining the thought. This plant, shrouded in mist, had grown 36 leaves and 9 ruby-like fruits. Each fruit held terrifying energy, and even its leaves radiated boundless life force. Unfortunately, he couldn't access the Red Earth world, and besides, the fruits were still maturing and wouldn't be ready for a while. Xiao Chen, how are you feeling now? What's your level? Lu Erlong asked, noticing he was lost in thought. Chen Xien snapped back to reality, sensing his soul power increase. He shook his head and replied, unfortunately, it only increased my soul power by 1 level. I'm now a level 51 Battle Soul King. Only 1 level. Xiao Wu was both surprised and disappointed for him. Lu Erlong furrowed her brows. The result was unexpected. The greater the gap in the beast's strength, the more one usually gained. She had conservatively estimated an increase of at least 2 levels, possibly reaching level 53. Ah, if only Xiao Gang were here. With his knowledge, he'd surely know the reason. Lu Erlong sighed, thinking fondly of you, Xiao Gang. Chen Xien smirked. Even a limit Duoluo like Bibi Dong might not figure it out, let alone you, Xiao Gang. He alone knew the secrets within him. Undoubtedly, the plant in the Red Earth world was the culprit. It had absorbed most of the Gale Demon Wolf's energy, using it as nutrients. By the way, Chen Xien, what's your 5th soul skill? Xiao Wu asked curiously. Chen Xien sighed. My martial soul is unique. No matter how many rings I gain, they don't produce skills, only boosts to various attributes. His teachers had inquired about his martial soul many times, and he had explained it multiple times, though it seemed Xiao Wu never took it seriously. What? Then where did your previous skills come from? Xiao Wu's eyes widened in shock. A martial soul without skills seemed practically useless. Indeed, for anyone else, it would be a cumbersome soul. Lu Erlong casually added more wood to the fire and remarked, but isn't your martial soul a spatial one, Xiao Chen? Yes, but it requires specific objects as a medium to activate. According to competition rules, I can barely use it, Chen Xien explained. The characteristics of his martial soul weren't really a secret, and anyone observant could discern them. On the field, even if his martial soul's ability was restricted, he wasn't at a disadvantage. His speed was sufficient, though the Flying Thunder God technique was more direct. He didn't have many innate talents, but he had a considerable advantage in controlling soul power. With training, he could even replicate Zhang Billion's thunder technique. Late at night, as the moon vanished and the sky darkened, the campfire crackled on, with the trio spending the night in the Soul Beast forest. When Xiao Wu opened her eyes, dawn had broken, and the forest air was crisp. The campfire was still burning, with a freshly roasted chicken nearby. Apparently, Lu Erlong had risen before dawn to catch a well-fed chicken and roast it over the fire. Chen Xien felt speechless. Was this really an appropriate breakfast? After a simple meal, the 3 packed up and left the forest, returning to Spirit City. As the sun rose, casting a golden glow over the land like a yellow sea, Oscar's surprised voice called out, Xiao Wu, Teacher Erlong, you're back so soon. The Shrek group, already up and training, gathered around as they noticed the 3 return. Tell us, Xiao Wu, what level are you at now? Ning Rongrong, bright and beautiful, grabbed Xiao Wu's hand and led her aside. The others perked up, listening eagerly. Upon hearing that Xiao Wu had reached level 43, everyone was astonished. A Millennium Soul Ring brought a 3-level increase, unbelievable. When they heard Chen Xien had absorbed a soul beast over 30,000 years, everyone was shaken. Such an achievement challenged yet another of the master's theories. However, hearing he'd only gained 1 level of soul power, some sighed with disappointment. They'd expected a significant boost, only to find it was just a minor one. Xiao Wu, what kind of soul beast did you absorb? Tang San asked, curious. A sub-10,000-year soul ring granting 3 levels meant it was likely a rare and powerful soul beast. The unexpected question caught Xiao Wu off guard, leaving her momentarily speechless. She hadn't actually absorbed a soul ring and was merely fabricating her story. I'm not sure. I just remember it was big and fat. Yes, that's it, she stammered, sounding unconvincing. Chen Xien covered his face, feeling second-hand embarrassment for her. Surely no one would believe such a feeble explanation. He couldn't help but wonder, did Tang San not know that a soul beast transformed into human form could still produce soul rings? Xiao Wu, let me see your soul ring, Tang Xien suggested, activating his purple demon eyes, which glowed with a purple aura. Xiao Wu, fully trusting her third brother, called forth her soft-bone charming rabbit martial soul, displaying 4 soul rings, yellow, yellow, purple, and purple. Tang Xien's gaze swept over her. When his eyes landed on her slightly round belly, he froze, as if struck by lightning. His face went pale as he stared blankly, as if all his strength had drained away, leaving him swaying on the spot. You. Tang Xien staggered, pointing at Xiao Wu's belly, almost on the verge of breaking down. Xiao San, what's wrong? Daimyobai and Oscar rushed to support him, only to be shoved aside. Tang Xion's eyes were bloodshot, his face twisted in shock. From Xiao Wu's belly emanated the aura of life, a new life. He couldn't hold back any longer and spat out a mouthful of blood, staining the ground red, his face paling even further. The impact had devastated him. Third brother, what's wrong with you? Xiao Wu asked worriedly, seeing Tang Xion's weakened state. She extended her delicate hand, intending to touch him, but it was harshly slapped away. Don't touch me. Tang Xien scolded, his gaze icy cold, a flicker of disdain hidden deep within his eyes. Xiao Wu's face turned pale, frozen in place, uncertain of what to do, gazing at her third brother in fear, like a child who had done something wrong. Xiao San, what do you mean? Getting so angry? What did Xiao Wu do to you? Lu Erlong, fiercely protective of Xiao Wu, rushed over, pulling her behind. Ning Rongrong stood in front of Xiao Wu, furious. Third brother, why are you being so harsh to Xiao Wu? What's the meaning of this? The rest of the Shrek members shared a look of confusion, all focusing on Tang Xien, wondering what was going on with him. Even Flender frowned, displeased at his disciple, feeling that Tang Xien had gone too far. Their eldest brother, Daimyobai, tried to mediate. Xiao San, talk this out calmly. I don't know what misunderstanding has come up between you and Xiao Wu, but don't act so impulsively. Misunderstanding. Tang Xien sneered bitterly, his laugh full of mockery. No one could understand the amount of hurt and shock he had endured in just this minute. Who could possibly understand? Tang Xien felt like crying but had no tears. He was practically losing his mind. He wished it was all a misunderstanding, but reality was unbearably harsh. The person he loved the most, his little sister whom he had vowed to protect, had betrayed him, secretly carrying another man's child. How could he accept that? Did she intend to secretly have this child, only to shock everyone? Xiao San, what are you talking about? Daimyobai became increasingly confused, unable to fathom how his usually gentle and calm brother was becoming so unhinged. What am I saying? Do I really need to spell it out? Tang Xien shifted between bitter laughter and agonizing pain, a single tear tracing down his crazed face. Now he realized the depth of Xiao Wu's shamelessness. She would affectionately call him third brother but secretly have an affair and bear another man's child. The thought of such betrayal made Tang Xien go mad, overwhelmed by a mix of emotions, until he coughed up blood. Xiao San, third brother. The Shrek members cried out in alarm, shocked to see Tang Xien continuously spitting blood. Clearly, he had suffered internal injuries. But what could have caused this? Xiao Wu stood frozen in panic, wanting to approach him to offer comfort. But upon seeing his bloodshot, icy gaze, her heart skipped a beat, and she dared not move. Tang Xien's face was deathly pale, yet his gaze grew colder. An uncontrollable thought filled his mind, almost tearing him apart. He recalled that spirit masters had a much harder time conceiving than ordinary people. Even after 20 encounters, pregnancy wasn't guaranteed, yet Xiao Wu had somehow managed to conceive a bastard child. The vision of this tormented him, leaving him almost drained. Had it not been for Daimyobai holding him up, he might have collapsed to the ground. Hundreds of thousands. He kept coughing blood, his head spinning, nearly fainting from the anger. Everyone looked at him in worry and confusion. How could he suddenly start spitting so much blood? The ground was stained red, all of it his. Xiao San, what's going through your mind? Stop torturing yourself. Daimyobai, Oscar, and Tai Long pleaded with deep concern for his well-being. Chen Xien's heart skipped a beat. He had been found out. It was impossible to keep this secret forever, but he hadn't expected this day to come so soon. Under everyone's questioning, Tang Xien finally revealed the truth, exposing the fact that he had discovered the life growing inside Xiao Wu's womb. Daimyobai's eyes widened, stunned, and slightly doubtful. Xiao San, could you have made a mistake? How could Xiao Wu do something like that? The others found it hard to believe as well. Xiao Wu was usually lively and affectionate, often staying by Tang Xion's side. How could she possibly have cheated? However, Zhu Zuking, Ning Rongrong, and Lu Erlong remained silent, indicating that they had already known. Xiao Wu's face turned deathly pale, her body trembling as she took steps back, wanting to flee the scene. Her mind was blank, unsure what to do. The thing she feared the most had been exposed. Was there any hope left for her and Tang Xien? Seeing Xiao Wu's panicked expression, combined with her round belly, everyone began to believe most of what was said. Xiao Wu, is what Xiao San said true? Daimyobai and Oscar's heads buzzed. They had guessed the truth but still couldn't bring themselves to accept it. Lu Erlong sighed, creating some space. This was unavoidable, Xiao Wu would eventually have to face it. Zhu Zuking and Ning Rongrong shook their heads and moved aside, making space for Xiao Wu. The rest of the Shrek members, seeing the calm expressions of the three, could imagine that they had known for a while. Xiao Wu looked desperate, her face drained of color. Her trembling hands clutched at her dress, like a frightened little rabbit. Xiao Wu, tell us. How did you get pregnant? Daimyo demanded loudly. The others were equally disappointed, filled with shock and grief. They had always seen Xiao Wu's love for Tang San. Who could have imagined this? Xiao Wu, why did you betray third brother? Ma Hongjun asked, shaking his head in disappointment. Everyone's questions bombarded her, leaving Xiao Wu shaking, unable to say a word. With the truth revealed, Lu Erlong knew there was no turning back. She grabbed her adopted daughter's shoulders. Xiao Wu, tell me, who's the father of this child? Xiao Wu was already distraught, and now even her godmother's question left her feeling even more panicked. Daimyo, Oscar, Ma Hongjun, Lu Erlong, and Tai Long kept questioning her, forcing her to reveal the truth. Xiao Wu trembled, her eyes welling up with tears, but she bit her lip tightly, refusing to implicate Chen Xien. The more she refused, the more the Shrek members wanted to know the truth. Who was this person that she protected so dearly? Xiao Wu, who is he? Do I mean so little in comparison? Tang San asked in disbelief, his anger boiling over, despising the other man. He was so exceptional, with such amazing talent. Was he not good enough for her? What does he have that I don't? Tell me. No, third brother, I really don't know. Xiao Wu stammered, her eyes red, yet still refusing to speak of Chen Xien. Her brother's hatred, her companion's disappointment, her sister's pity, Lu Erlong's questions, everyone's expressions played out before her, striking her heart and making her want to cry. Xiao Wu shut her eyes tightly, trying to escape from it all, but their voices continued to surround her. She clamped her hands over her ears, trying to find peace. But the persistent questions only echoed louder, stirring her heart into chaos. Finally, Xiao Wu could bear it no longer, and tears began streaming down her face, falling onto the ground. Seeing those tears fall from her delicate face, Chen Xien's heart wavered, almost melting, unable to hold back his feelings any longer. Xiao Wu's tears cut into his heart like a knife, making it hard to breathe, impossible to ignore. Chen Xien strode forward and pulled the trembling Xiao Wu into his arms, holding her tightly. Xiao Wu, her eyes still closed, felt herself pulled into a strong embrace. Her eyelashes fluttered as she looked up, seeing a broad chest, filled with a warm, comforting male scent. The Shrek members stared, stunned by his sudden move. Chen Xien, are you crazy? What are you doing? Daimyo and Lu Erlong shouted. Xiao Wu was like a treasure to them, they couldn't stand by and let her fall into the wrong hands. Chen Xien shielded Xiao Wu behind him, facing the Shrek members with piercing eyes, and spoke a shocking truth. I'm the one you're looking for. The child in Xiao Wu's belly is mine. I am the person you're talking about. The child in Xiao Wu's belly is mine. These words crashed into everyone's hearts like a tidal wave. As soon as he spoke, the Shrek members froze, a shockwave spreading through their minds, leaving them utterly stunned. What the? Ma Hongjun blurted out, swearing in disbelief. He couldn't help but feel admiration for Chen Xien's audacity in crowning their third brother with a hat. He had only daydreamed about such things, but Chen Xien had actually done what he'd only dared to think so explosive. Upon hearing this, Zhu Zuking's heart trembled violently. She felt a sudden weakness, staggering and nearly falling. Her fingers trembled as her voice turned frail and weak. Chen Xien, is what you're saying true? To everyone's surprise, the first person to speak wasn't Tang San but Zhu Zuking. Daimyo's expression instantly turned icy, burning with fury. It was that damned guy again. No, it's impossible, Xian, you must be lying, right? Zhang Zhu's face turned pale, her emotions intense and uncontrolled as she ran over, clutching one of Xiao Wu's arms and trying to pull her away. But as a support-type spirit master, how could she move a soul king? Zhang Zuking, I have no reason to lie to you. The child in Xiao Wu's belly truly is mine, Chen Xien sighed, revealing this harsh truth. He had always known that Zhang Zhu harbored feelings for his original self, and he knew this would inevitably hurt her. Upon hearing this, Zhang Zhu's body trembled, her eyes becoming hollow and dazed. She almost collapsed, saved only by Daimyo's quick support. Meanwhile, Zhu Zuking remained calm upon hearing this, but her red eyes and teary gaze showed she was barely holding it together, her heart filled with a complicated mix of bitterness. Everyone fell silent, not that they believed this revelation completely, but Xiao Wu's response, nestled in Chen Xien's arms, was its own form of acquiescence. They had not imagined how deeply Xiao Wu had been hurt before, how she had tried to block out the sounds of the world by covering her ears, a sign of her immense pain and her attempt to escape. Perhaps, at some point, she had been pushed to despair, frightened of everyone, feeling as if she were suffocating under the weight. And in Xiao Wu's most vulnerable moment, Chen Xien appeared, offering her a warm embrace, shielding her from accusations, and giving her a sense of safety. Even knowing it was Chen Xien, someone she resisted, at this moment, she didn't want to think about anything. She only wanted to lean quietly against his solid chest. Xiao Wu, tell me yourself, is the child in your belly his? Tang San's voice was hoarse, his face dark as storm clouds. Oh, you come here demanding answers, and now you're questioning her even more. Chen Xien kept Xiao Wu protectively behind him. However, Tang San ignored him, his bloodshot eyes filled with killing intent as he coldly stared at Xiao Wu, waiting for her to answer. Xiao Wu avoided his gaze, lowering her head, unable to meet his eyes. Chen Xien held her hand, giving her the warmth and sense of security she needed now, yet she kept her eyes closed, unable to look at him. Her silent acceptance hit Tang Xien harder than any words could, driving him to near madness. Seeing Xiao Wu and Chen Xien hand in hand, their fingers intertwined without resistance, was another heavy blow, hammering at his heart. Tang Xien's eyes turned blood red, his face twisted in rage, with the last remnants of his reason consumed by fury. Die. He suddenly burst forward, raising his Zuj divine crossbow and firing towards them, his movements sharp and merciless. The Shrek members widened their eyes, utterly shocked. None of them had expected him to strike out. After all, Xiao Wu was still standing beside Chen Xien. If Chen Xien died, it wouldn't matter much, as he'd only been with Shrek for a few months, but Xiao Wu was different. She was one of the original Shrek members, someone they'd known for over 2 years. It wasn't the same. In truth, the moment he pulled the trigger, Tang Xien regretted it. The arrows covered a wide area, and there was no way Xiao Wu wouldn't get hurt. Seeing this, Xiao Wu's eyes grew hollow with despair, her chest aching as if a dagger had pierced her heart. The one who hurt her was none other than her beloved third brother, leaving her heartbroken that the day had come for them to raise weapons against each other so soon. A tear slid down her beautiful cheek, filled with bitterness and pain, leaving her deeply sorrowful. You really went through with it. Chen Xien's gaze turned icy as he raised his hand, releasing a burst of soul power. Lightning sparked in his palm, and with a loud crack, the 18 arrows shattered in midair, falling to the ground in pieces. You say you want to protect your little sister, yet how many times have you actually done so? Now you're even attacking her. Hypocrite. Chen Xien looked at him coldly. Attacking his own sister, was this really the pure and noble third young master of the Tang clan? You? How dare you slander me? Tang San glared at Chen Xien, enraged and bloodthirsty, clearly hit in his weakest spot. Deep down, you know exactly what kind of person you are. Do you think you can deceive others and yourself? Ignoring him, Chen Xien gently looked back at Xiao Wu, softly saying, Don't be afraid, as long as I'm here, no one can hurt you. Then he turned to face Tang San, his gaze fierce as he drew a white long sword from his storage soul tool, electric sparks surrounding it with a powerful surge of soul energy. Xiao Wu's heart skipped a beat as she stared at his warm, protective figure. It felt as if his presence alone could bring endless security, soothing her troubled mind. Her nose tingled, her eyes welling up with tears. Her heart had been shattered by the person she once loved the most, and yet the person she had once disliked, Chen Xien, was now protecting her, defending her, and making her feel like his one and only. Her heart was in turmoil, her thoughts like crashing waves, leaving her at a loss for what to do. Seeing her like this, Tang San's anger flared. He knew Chen Xien was intentionally sowing discord, but he was helpless to stop it. Tang San, don't think too highly of yourself. Do you really believe I'm afraid of you? Chen Xien's expression was cold as he held the sword, lightning dancing around it, prepared to stand up for the mother of his child. The Shrek members looked on as the two men prepared to clash, but none stepped forward to intervene or speak, for they understood that this was far from an ordinary squabble. Past grievances, rekindled by Xiao Wu's presence, had reignited the rivalry between Chen Xien and Tang San. Their confrontation had now become inevitable. Chen Xien pointed his sword at Tang San and said, I'll give you a chance, kneel down and apologize to Xiao Wu, and I might spare you. Spare me? By you. Tang San sneered, as if achieving Soul King status gave Chen Xien the right to act arrogantly in Shrek's presence. As filial as Tang San was, there were only two people he'd kneel to in this world: his teacher and his parents. No one else deserved such reverence. Even if he did kneel, he doubted anyone could bear the weight of it. In a fit of rage over a woman, two men clash. There has always been tension between Chen Xien and Tang San, but today, spurred by Xiao Wu, it escalates into a life-or-death situation. To the Shrek companions, it appears as nothing more than two men vying for Xiao Wu's affection, each determined to prove the other as the interloper. Tang San, storing away his Zuj crossbow, pulls 6 deadly poison darts from his belt, intending to settle the grievances that had built up over the last 3 months. It was with the deadly darts that the old monster, Dugubo, managed to defeat Duluo, turning the tide of battle. Another hidden weapon? Do you have anything other than that? You can't face real danger without relying on these tools. It shows how dependent you are, said Chen Xien. You understand nothing. Tang San scoffed, knowing the power of the Tang sect was beyond anything a small mind could grasp. In the past, you insulted my teacher, humiliated me, and now you're trying to take Xiao Wu from me. Today, it's either you or me. Tang San's face turned vicious, his intent to kill clear. Chen Xien laughed, unfazed. Laughable. Are you married to her? Do you have any claim? You always think everything is yours, but the world doesn't work like that. He held back, curious to see Tang San's next argument. Tang San's eyes gleamed with malice as he replied, twisting the truth as always. You're a hypocrite, taking another man's woman. What honor do you have left? Chen Xien smirked. Better than you, at least. You claim to treat Xiao Wu as your sister, yet you covet her as if she were more. It's clear you've been playing a long game. Chen Xien's mockery hit home, exposing Tang San's broken promise to regard Xiao Wu as a sister yet harboring feelings beyond that, highlighting the irony of his own hypocrisy. Well, Xiao Wu is the mother of my child now. So, why are you still here, interloper? Third party suits you perfectly, Chen Xien taunted sarcastically. The mention of mother of my child struck Tang San like a physical blow, making his eyes red with rage. You're asking to die. Enraged, Tang Xien threw his deadly poison darts, which collided mid-air, unleashing a lethal green gas, covering the clearing in poison. The Shrek members quickly retreated, distancing themselves from the poisoned area to avoid accidental harm. Xiao Wu, do you have a death wish? Ning Rongrong cried out, rushing to pull her stunned friend out of the toxic cloud. In the winery's clearing, the air turned a chilling green as the poison gas spread, eerie and menacing. In the toxic mist, the 6 poison darts clashed again, triggering mechanisms that unleashed a hail of poisoned needles, deadly and able to pierce flesh with ease. Chen Xien found himself cornered by the poisoned needles scattered on the ground, each glinting with toxic green light. This poison was mixed with the ice-fire yin-yang well water, potent enough to kill an elephant with a single drop. Tang Xien's intent was clear, he wanted Chen Xien dead, holding nothing back. With a cold expression, Chen Xien thought, if you want my life, don't blame me for not holding back. He readied himself as a booming thunderclap broke the silence, lightning bursting through the mist. A sudden gust arose, stirring up a fierce wind without any warning. Whoosh! Just as the poisonous mist was about to engulf Chen Xien, a powerful gust swept it all away, scattering the hidden needles, which lost their force and fell to the ground. Why did the wind suddenly start? Ma Hongjun and Oscar wondered aloud, but no one provided an answer. Chen Xien emerged from the mist, surrounded by crackling arcs of electricity, holding a massive, radiant thunder beast in the form of a Kailan's head, exuding immense power. Lightning style, Kailan. Isn't that the move from the qualifying match? Ma Hongjun gasped. The Kailan, forged from lightning, was enormous and intimidating. In a single blow, it had shattered Shui Binger's ice phoenix in the competition. Now, as a spirit king, Chen Xien's power had only grown. Tang Xion's face darkened, beads of sweat forming on his brow as he looked at the blinding lightning. Blue-silver grass and the unpowered clear sky hammer couldn't match this beastly force. Not willing to risk it, Tang Xion's hand grasped 2 dark, poison-laced darts from his 24 moonlit bridges pouch, holding them tight. Chen Xien's gaze turned icy, aware that if struck, the venomous Yama's invitation would dissolve any opponent into blood. Suddenly, vines burst from the ground, wrapping around Chen Xien's ankles, restricting his movement. Second spirit ability, parasitic. Tang Xien sneered, revealing that the poison darts had merely been a distraction to cover the scattering of blue-silver grass seeds. Every step Chen Xien had taken was calculated. Swish! Tang Xien launched the 2 Yama's invitations, their deadly aura causing the air itself to sizzle. Calculating that Chen Xien, burdened by such a powerful ability, couldn't dodge, Tang Xien saw his chance. As the venomous darts neared him, Chen Xien threw his Kusunagi sword with calm precision. It seemed Tang Xien had made the right gamble, for Chen Xien, limited by the massive Kailan technique, had no choice but to dispel it. Swish! At the moment of impact, Chen Xien vanished, dissolving into light. Thud, thud. The poison darts struck a stone slab behind him, corroding it in an instant, leaving a large, dark hole. Where did Chen Xien go? The Shrek members were baffled, astounded by his speed, moving faster than the eye could see. Tang Xien, now visibly shaken, quickly scanned the area with his purple demon eyes. In midair, the white Kusunagi sword spun in a graceful arc, slowly descending toward Tang Xien. Swish! In the next instant, a golden flash appeared as a white figure materialized. Chen Xien caught his sword, lightning sparking across his body, and swung his leg down toward Tang Xien's head. The foot, charged with lightning, crackled, resembling a spearhead. Shrek members looked on in awe, Chen Xien's speed beyond what they'd imagined. Tang Xien, unable to summon his clear sky hammer in time, raised his hands, activating his mysterious jade hands to block the blow. Clang! As lightning and jade touched, electricity danced across the field, shattering nearby plants. The Shrek members remembered the day when Chen Xien had used this very skill to take down a spirit emperor in the spirit hall attack. Arg! Tang Xien struggled, blood spilling from his mouth as he tried to withstand the force, his arms trembling under the strain. Bow down! Chen Xien commanded, pressing harder. The ground cracked as Tang Xien was forced to one knee. Continuing to press down, lightning intensified under Chen Xien's foot. Thud! Tang Xien spat blood, feeling his organs rattling from the force, his mysterious jade hands ineffective against the strength. With a sickening crack, Tang Xien's arms broke, bones splintering. Enough, Chen. Flender intervened, frowning. Chen Xien had gone too far, forcing Tang Xien to his knees in public, a deliberate humiliation. PFF. Tang Xien's face turned pale as he coughed up blood uncontrollably. The force of the blow was so intense it could crush boulders, and his Xian Yu hand couldn't dissolve it. His internal organs had been shaken, causing him to bleed internally. Crack! Tang Xien screamed as his face turned even paler. Both his arms were broken, and his hand bones were fractured. AHH. Another scream erupted as Tang Xien spat out a mouthful of blood. He couldn't hold on any longer and dropped to his knees. That's enough, Xiao Chen. Flender suddenly interjected, stopping the fight. Despite everything, Tang Xien was the last disciple of the master before his passing. Seeing him in such a miserable state pained Flender, who felt that Chen Xien had gone too far. The Shrek members were extremely worried. With Tang Xien's hand bones broken, he likely wouldn't be able to compete for a while. At the same time, they were horrified. The Tang Xien they thought to be invincible and unbeaten had lost today even after using hidden weapons. And he lost to Chen Xien, of all people. AHH. Another scream sounded, accompanied by the sound of bones cracking. Tang San's chest caved in, and he spat out another mouthful of blood as he flew through the air, colliding with a large tree that shook from the impact. Stop! What are you doing? Flender's eyes reddened at the sight. Brother San! The Shrek members shouted in alarm. Tang San's caved-in chest indicated broken ribs, possibly even damage to his lungs. If left untreated, the injuries could be permanent. Lu Erlong was furious, her eyes burning with rage. This was her beloved Xiao Gang's last disciple, and in her mind, she had already come to see Tang San as her child. To see him treated like this was unacceptable. Yet Chen Xien moved even faster, reaching Tang San before anyone could react. Chen Xien, what are you doing? This is just a sparring match, don't do anything reckless. Flender, Lu Erlong, Daimyobai, and the others cried out, trying to stop him. At this rate, Tang San would be stripped to his bones, if not outright killed. The killing intent in Chen Xien's eyes was undeniable. He genuinely wanted to kill Tang San. Chen Xien, you're inhuman? Third brother just wanted to spar with you, yet you treat him so ruthlessly. You're nothing short of a demon. Tai Long shouted in anger, his words filled with condemnation. Driven by his loyalty to Tang San, Tai Long was deeply agitated. Seeing Tang San in such a state pained him deeply, and he wanted to avenge him, but he dared not act. Even Lu Erlong, Flender, and the others refrained from making any moves, choosing instead to try to talk Chen Xien down. This was because Chen Xien was holding Tang San by the neck, lifting him like a chicken, his figure appearing pitiful. Chen Xien's arm was wrapped in lightning, and his grip was terrifying. He could crush steel, let alone a human neck. Daimyobai, Ma Hongjun, Oscar, and the others could only watch tensely, afraid that a single impulse from Chen Xien could crush Tang San's neck, beyond saving. Xiao Chen, don't act recklessly. Let go of Xiao San, and we can discuss this calmly, Flender pleaded anxiously, fearing the worst. Daimyobai also tried to reason with him. Brother, we Shrek members are a family, we've lived together for so long, we're like family. Do you really want to be so heartless towards Xiao San? Xiao Wu, who usually stood by Tang San, remained surprisingly silent, neither supporting nor opposing either side. With Tang San's life in Chen Xien's hands, no one dared provoke him. They could only plead for his mercy. Yet Tai Long, fiercely loyal to Tang San, couldn't control himself. Tang San was the young master of the Strength clan, a person even his grandfather Titan respected. Seeing him treated so inhumanely, Tai Long's rage was boundless. Chen Xien, you bastard! Stealing third brother's woman wasn't enough, now you want to kill him too. You're heartless, and you lack the basic decency of a human being. Tai Long cursed, his face red with fury. Chen Xien looked at him coldly. Anyone who tries to kill me will face the same. If you're not happy, come talk to me about it. Tai Long gritted his teeth, but knowing he was no match for Chen Xien, he dared not challenge him. Flender intervened, enough, Xiao Chen. Xiao Wu's pregnancy was inappropriate on your part. You've defeated Xiao San, don't take this any further. Chen Xien, Xiao San is already beaten and has broken bones. Isn't that enough? Must you be so excessive? Daimyobai asked. Chen Xien sneered. Excessive? You're only seeing one side. Are you ignoring Tang San's intent to kill me? Isn't that laughable? Daimyobai's face turned red, unable to respond, because Tang San did indeed intend to kill Chen Xien, a fact that couldn't be denied. Flender frowned, displeased. Xiao Chen, you're wrong here. You stole Xiao Wu away, naturally, Xiao San resents you. But you're standing here unharmed, aren't you? In his view, any man whose partner was taken would be angry enough to want revenge. Tang San's intent to kill was, in his mind, understandable. Exactly, Oscar muttered in agreement. Zhu Zuking and Rong Rong remained silent, feeling hurt by the situation and the impact it had on them. Dean, I respect you as a strong figure, but to protect a student you like, you're willing to ignore the truth. It's truly disappointing. Chen Xien spoke calmly, unwilling to be misled by them. Flender's face reddened as his bias was laid bare for all to see. Chen Xien, there's no need to deflect. You got Xiao Wu pregnant, so isn't this all your fault? Lu Erlong demanded angrily. Turning to Xiao Wu, Lu Erlong urgently asked, Xiao Wu, tell me, did he force you? If he did, I'll defend you with my life. The other women Zhu Zuking, Ning Rongrong, and Jiangzhu listened intently, sensitive to such matters. Xiao Wu averted her gaze, avoiding Lu Erlong's eyes, unable to say a word. Her feelings toward Chen Xien had softened, and she was no longer as repulsed by him as before. Seeing Tang San attack her had deeply disappointed her, even making her fearful of him. As Xiao Wu remained silent, Lu Erlong turned her fury on Chen Xien. Chen Xien, answer me? Did you force Xiao Wu? The women looked at him, hoping he wasn't as monstrous as they feared. No. Chen Xien replied seriously, whether you believe it or not, I did not coerce Xiao Wu. He then recounted the events of 3 months ago. After the competition, Xiao Wu escorted him to his hotel, where she accidentally ate a miraculous fruit in his room, leading to everything that happened afterward. Shocked, the Shrek members were caught off guard, having expected either coercion or infidelity. They hadn't anticipated such a bizarre truth. Originally, they didn't believe in a dual cultivation fruit, but when Xiao Wu nodded in confirmation, they were silenced, each feeling complex emotions. Jiangzhu sighed in relief. She didn't care about Xiao Wu's involvement, she just felt relieved that Chen Xien wasn't at fault. So, the day Sister Xiao Wu didn't return to the academy. Ma Hongjun gaped, trailing off. Daimyo sighed, feeling somewhat guilty. If he had taken Chen Xien back to the hotel, none of this would have happened. The group pitted Tang San. Thankfully, he was unconscious, otherwise, hearing this story would have broken him. Lu Erlong, frustrated and with nowhere to direct her anger, found herself helpless. Her goddaughter had unwittingly eaten the fruit, causing this incident, so she couldn't blame Chen Xien. It seemed Xiao Wu's quick advancement to rank 43 was a result of the dual cultivation fruit. So your rapid increase in soul power is because of that fruit, Flender concluded, feeling the explanation made sense. Yes. If I'd known its effects, I wouldn't have let Xiao Wu eat it. What exactly do you mean, Xiao Chen? Flender's face darkened. The matter of Xiao Wu's pregnancy was an accident, not intentional or forced. Now that the misunderstanding was resolved, he had declared the incident to be over. But to his surprise, Chen Xien seemed determined to take things further. Daimyo spoke up, his voice stern. Chen Xien, this isn't a life or death duel. Xiao San was only sparring with you. Now that you've won, you're still being ruthless. What do you want? That's right. Xiao San has put everything into the Shrek team, working tirelessly to help us achieve a better ranking. You've benefited from his efforts, and instead of gratitude, you're paying him back with vengeance. Do you even have a heart? Tai Long added angrily. Chen Xien, what did Xiao San ever do to you? Others echoed. What did he do? Nothing really, Chen Xien replied, still gripping Tang San's neck. He turned to Tai Long and mocked, stop putting labels on people. My own strength comes entirely from my own efforts. What part of it has anything to do with Tang San or you Xiaogang? Benefit? Who would want to benefit from a loser? Don't speak nonsense. Everyone from Shrek, including Flender and Lu Erlong, remained silent. After all, Chen Xien was right, his power came from his own efforts and had little to do with Shrek Academy. But Tai Long didn't care and angrily retorted, nonsense? You're just an ungrateful wretch? Without the environment and resources that Shrek and the Master provided, could you have achieved your current strength? Although he was shouting angrily, doubt had crept into his heart. Chen Xien sneered, don't assume everyone is as brainless as you, always playing the lackey. Anyone with a bit of sense wouldn't say something that stupid. Or are you saying you think yourself virtuous for licking Tang San's boots? Tai Long's face turned red with anger, feeling humiliated by the insult. He was about to retort, but Lu Erlong stopped him, giving him a warning look to prevent further trouble. Flender sighed, forcing himself to take a conciliatory approach, as Tang San was still in Chen Xien's grasp. All right, Xiao Chen, stop this. Just tell us what will it take for you to let Xiao San go. Chen Xien replied calmly, Dean, I've said it twice, I won't show mercy to someone who tries to kill me. I'm already giving you face by not killing him on the spot. If they were elsewhere, he would have already ended Tang San's life instead of wasting words here. Truthfully, it wasn't time to turn hostile yet. Given his current abilities, killing Tang San would mean risking an escape from two powerful soul saints, and he wasn't confident he could do that. Daimyo, Oscar, and the others frowned. Since when did Xiao San attempt to kill Chen Xien? Flender frowned, displeased. Xiao Chen, it was just a sparring match. Besides, you're unharmed now, aren't you? Chen Xien, stop messing around. You've won. Isn't that enough? Daimyo called out. Chen Xien chuckled and said, go over there and take a look. Check out those two darts before you speak. What do you mean? Daimyo asked, his brows furrowing. Exactly what I said, Chen Xien replied coldly, gesturing toward the so-called King of Hell's invitation. Flender and Lu Erlong exchanged a glance, both realizing something. They quickly walked over to the distant stone slab. The Shrek members looked stunned. Could there be something they had overlooked? At that moment, the half-meter-thick stone slab had a large hole in the center, which was being corroded by a pool of black liquid, emitting a foul stench. This toxic black liquid, oozing from the two darts called the King of Hell's invitation, was so corrosive that it melted the stone slab, an indication of its terrifying potency. If this poison touched a person, not even a god could save them. In an instant, they would be reduced to a pool of blood, bones dissolved. Flender and Lu Erlong, though soul saints, refrained from touching the darts, doubting even they could resist such a poison. They returned, sighing deeply, no longer questioning Chen Xien's actions. The other Shrek members noticed the Dean's unusual behavior and grew curious, sensing that there was more to the situation. If I hadn't dodged, I'd be the one lying over there. Dean, do you still think I'm being excessive? Chen Xien asked. The poison of the King of Hell's invitation was so deadly that even a tidal Duoluo, if hit, would be reduced to blood and bones. Much less could a soul emperor withstand it. As it was, he had merely broken Tang San's chest and arm bones. Had he not considered certain people, he would have killed him with one slash. Flender sighed, realizing now that Tang San's actions were more ruthless and that Chen Xien's response was not excessive. Lu Erlong remained silent, knowing there was no reason to rebuke Chen Xien. Their reactions made it clear to the other Shrek members that the situation had reversed. Xiao Chen, name your terms. What will it take for you to let Xiao San go? Flender shook his head, sighing. No matter what, Tang San was his old friend's last disciple, and he felt responsible for his safety. Chen Xien was taken aback, surprised by the question. What did he want? Naturally, he wanted to kill Tang San, but at this moment, that wasn't feasible. If he strangled Tang San to death, it would satisfy him but drive others to madness. Honestly, he doubted he could escape 2 soul saints if he did so. With his recent breakthrough, his flying thunder god technique's range had increased to 600 meters, but it still required a weapon as a medium. His strength could only launch it 200 or 300 meters at most. He knew that the moment he killed Tang Xien, Flender, and Lu Erlong would be upon him. Furthermore, he wasn't certain if someone was secretly watching or if Tang Hao had already infiltrated Spirit Hall. The Shrek members whispered among themselves, now aware of the King of Hell's invitation's poison. The realization of its lethality enough to kill a soul saint with a mere drop left them stunned. They were shocked to realize Tang Xien's ruthlessness. When he snapped, he didn't hesitate to strike hard. Comparatively, Chen Xien's actions didn't seem so harsh, appearing almost restrained. If any of them had been attacked with such malicious intent, they wouldn't have shown mercy and would have struck back harder than Chen Xien had. Brother, I apologize. I acted impulsively as your senior, Daimubai said, apologetic. The others felt embarrassed for jumping to conclusions without knowing the facts and lowered their heads in shame. Tai Long, who had been the loudest critic, remained uncharacteristically silent, looking as if he had nothing to say. At this moment, Xiao Wu, who had remained silent, suddenly spoke. She looked at Chen Xien with pleading eyes and asked, Chen Xien, can you let Xiao San go this time? Chen Xien was taken aback, surprised that Xiao Wu would plead on Tang San's behalf. He knew the time wasn't right to kill Tang San, so he decided to use this as an opportunity. All right, since Xiao Wu asked, I'll spare him this time. Chen Xien released his grip and then delivered a kick to Tang San's abdomen, causing him to cough up blood as he flew, painfully waking him from his unconscious state. Chen Xien's heavy kick landed on Tang San's stomach, jolting him awake from unconsciousness with pain, causing him to spit up blood as he flew backward. Flender intervened, leaping into the air to catch Tang San securely, then handed him over to Jiangzhu and Ningrongrong for treatment and sought out a local healing soul master. This time, no one spoke up in defense, everyone was silent. They weren't people who couldn't tell right from wrong, and knowing the situation, their sympathies leaned more toward Tang San, making it difficult to speak for the opposing side. What Chen Xien hadn't anticipated was that, even after what happened, Xiao Wu still pleaded for Tang San, which surprised him. He found it hard to accept that the mother of his child seemed to still care about Tang San, something he would have to put an end to eventually. Before long, Jiangzhu and Ningrongrong returned to inform everyone that Tang San's injuries were serious. Fortunately, he received timely treatment, otherwise, he might have suffered irreversible damage. The best healing soul master had been called in, but Tang San wouldn't be able to participate in the competition for the next few days due to his recovery needs. Sigh, everyone go get some rest. I'll go check on Xiao San, Flender said wearily, giving a few instructions before leaving the manor with Lu Erlong. Daimubai, Tai Long, Oscar, and the others went straight back to their rooms to rest, saying nothing. Thus, Xiao Wu's pregnancy issue was now behind them, and the relationship between Chen Xien and Shrek had grown even more strained. Before heading back, Zhu Zuking cast a complicated look at Chen Xien but said nothing and went back to the hotel. Jiangzhu and Ningrongrong were pulled in to help care for Tang San and would not return until the evening. Now, only Chen Xien and Xiao Wu were left on the open ground in front of the manor. The two were surprisingly silent, and the atmosphere was overly quiet, a bit awkward. Eventually, Xiao Wu broke the silence, speaking softly, "Thank you, for saving me earlier." "It's nothing." Chen Xien nodded and said, "It's my duty to protect you and the baby." "No, I mean, thank you for standing up for me without hesitation. I really appreciate it," Xiao Wu said, her expression sincere. In that moment, when even her godmother was pressing her, only this man, whom she had once hated, was willing to protect her and speak up for her. Chen Xien shook his head, saying, "There's no need to feel guilty. This is a promise I made to myself, as long as I'm around, I won't let you get hurt." "No, I truly mean it." Xiao Wu shook her head, not out of formality but genuine gratitude. She had once hated this man intensely, but over the past few days, her perspective gradually changed. His words of protection and his actions provided her warmth and a sense of security. Especially now, Xiao Wu finally understood and felt a bit sorry for him. This was his own promise, a selfless one he'd uphold regardless of whether she accepted him or not. Her eyes reddened, tears welling up. She realized the unwavering commitment this man had been silently making, even though she'd treated him with nothing but hostility, even insults, before. Gradually, she began to accept him, out of responsibility for her future child. Having grown up without a father, she was determined not to let her child experience the same. Tang San's recent act with the Zhuzh divine crossbow shattered her fantasies, leaving her heartbroken. Now, the baby growing inside her was like a rising sun, her new source of hope. "Get some rest. I know today was hard on you. Go sleep well, and things will get better," Chen Xien said, his gaze gentle, full of concern. In a world where he had no family, where all he knew was coldness and emptiness, Xiao Wu and their unborn child brought him a sense of belonging. You too." Xiao Wu responded softly, then returned to the hotel to rest. She no longer felt animosity towards him. His protection and warmth made her feel at ease and safe. Even if not for these reasons, she should try to accept him for the sake of their child. The next morning, autumn's chill set in, leaves falling from the trees, and the continent-wide Soul Master Finals officially began. The members of Shrek felt a bit dazed, having experienced so much in the past weeks, almost forgetting the competition was about to start. On the empty ground in front of the hotel, everyone had gathered, including Jiangzhu and Ningrongrong, who had returned the night before. Ahem. Flender cleared his throat and addressed the group. All right, little monsters, cheer up. Although Xiao San can't join you, his spirit is with you. Show your best, and don't disappoint him. Don't worry, Dean. I'll make sure to fight for Xiao San's share, too. Daimubai declared with determination. The rest of Shrek were equally resolute. Although Tang San was absent, they were determined to uphold Shrek's honor. Good, Flender nodded approvingly, finally showing a smile. You don't need to worry. Xiao San has woken up and is cooperating with the Healing Soul Master. Flender informed everyone that Tang San was recovering rapidly, thanks to the celestial herbs and elixirs aiding him, and he would likely rejoin them on the battlefield in a few days. Hearing this, Daimubai, Tai Long, Oscar, and the others breathed a sigh of relief. They had faith in Xiao San's resilience. Later, the Shrek team arrived at the competition grounds atop the Pope's Palace. The arena was vast, 120 meters long and 60 meters wide, much larger than the Heaven Do Arena. Above the arena stood a statue of a six-winged angel, the divine symbol of the Spirit Hall. By now, the grounds had filled with people, as 33 teams arrived one by one. Soon, each academy's team leaders were called away for pre-match inspections. The Shrek team waited in the resting area. Shortly after, Flender returned with the inspection results, informing the group that the 3 teams sponsored by the Empire would have buys in the first round, facing them only in the next stage. Dean, who's our opponent? The group asked anxiously. Flender, with a hint of joy he couldn't contain, teased, I have good news and bad news. Which one would you like first? His barely suppressed smile hinted at favorable news for the team. Dean, let's hear the bad news first. Ma Hongjian suggested. Everyone nodded, bracing themselves as they awaited Flender's answer. Seeing their anticipation, Flender revealed, the bad news is that we drew Blazing Academy as our opponent. The Shrek team sighed in frustration. They were up against their old rival, Blazing Academy, again. Having been defeated twice before, Blazing Academy was likely well prepared. Without Tang San's fire immunity, they would face significant pressure. Dean, are you sure that's the bad news? Chen Xien interjected, doubting the severity. In his view, Blazing Academy wasn't particularly formidable, even weaker than Tianshui Academy. Among the 5 elemental academies, the strongest was undoubtedly Tianshui Academy, with an offensive power far exceeding both Kamikaze and Thunderbolt Academy, while the Blazing Fire Academy was just slightly better than Elephant Armor. Dean, did you get it wrong? Chen Xien was skeptical, thinking this was good news. Flender was still young, certainly not at an age to start forgetting things. Blazing Fire Academy wasn't necessarily weak, but it wasn't especially strong either. It was just that. The Shrek members didn't quite share Chen Xien's opinion. In the past, they had beaten Blazing Fire twice, mainly thanks to Tang San, whose blue-silver grass's fire resistance was a major advantage. Otherwise, they wouldn't have won so easily. Brother Chen, without Brother San, we're under a lot of pressure, Ma Hongjian complained, thinking Chen Xien was making it sound easy. Chen Xien responded calmly, relying on others will only get you so far. Focusing on your own strength is the way to go further. His words hinted at a deeper meaning, subtly pointing out that the Shrek team was stuck in their comfort zone, overly dependent on Tang San, whether in competition or making choices. Flender was somewhat embarrassed, his face unable to hide his awkwardness. He had nearly forgotten that this young man was already a spirit king. Cough, cough. Flender cleared his throat and continued, all right, let me tell you the good news, Blazing Fire Academy has forfeited, so Shrek Academy advances to the next round. Originally, he wanted to build some suspense, but Chen Xien's interruption made him abandon the idea. Thanks to that young man, Shrek now had 7 spirit elders and a spirit king, making their lineup quite powerful. Chen Xien had reached level 51, Zhu Zuqing was at 47, while Xiao Wu and Daimubai had both reached level 43. In the past, he had only dreamed of the championship, not truly believing they were strong enough. But now, with the current Shrek team, he thought they had a shot. At this moment, Qin Ming stepped forward, rubbing his chin thoughtfully, saying, with Blazing Fire Academy's forfeit, according to the competition rules, Shrek team will have 3 buys. The Shrek members were initially stunned, but then understood, filled with excitement. Qin Ming's reminder made them realize this advantage. This way, they could better observe their opponents and have more time to train, which would give Tang San time to recover. Chen Xien felt a bit sentimental, everything was back on the original timeline, and the waves he had stirred had settled. Time passed, and after half an hour, 100 golden armor knights arrived in a grand formation, lining up around the arena. The knights wore stern expressions, gazing intently at the elevated platform. Before long, the Spirit Hall officials arrived, including 2 black-robed bishops, Chrysanthemum Douluo, Ghost Douluo, and the referee, Soyun Tao. On the elevated platform, the Empress of the Spirit Hall appeared, holding a scepter, dressed in a long purple robe as she stepped forward. The sight of Empress Bibi Dong left the audience in awe, with countless gazes fixed on this beautiful woman. Even after 20 years, her beauty had not faded but only grew more enchanting. Bibi Dong had fair skin, a beautiful face, and a slender, graceful figure. Her long legs were clad in purple stockings, stepping elegantly in high heels. Her figure was alluring, with a captivating, narrow waist, and her fair face showed no sign of wrinkles. She looked far too young. It was hard to believe she was in her 40s or 50s, her graceful body and stunning face made her look like a woman in her 30s. Below, upon seeing such an enchanting rival, Lu Erlong lowered her head. She, too, was aging, but Bibi Dong looked as stunning as ever, adding an air of elegance with time. Bibi Dong's every move exuded mature charm. The long dress accentuated her slender figure, curvy yet refined, with an undeniable allure. Chen Xien was left speechless. This beautiful, mature woman held such a captivating charm, she was almost too much for him to resist. Suddenly, he gasped, feeling a sharp pain at both sides of his waist as if someone had pinched him hard. He turned sharply and saw a sweet face, cheeks puffed, glaring at him angrily. Was she that beautiful? Xiao Wu's sweet features were slightly fierce, her small fangs showing, though her big eyes lacked any real menace. On the contrary, her look made people want to pinch her cheeks. Turning again, Chen Xien met another cold face with beautiful, frosty eyes staring at him. Zhu Zuqing stood there, her expression cold, silently giving him a look that spoke volumes. I'm done looking, I'm done. Chen Xien quickly surrendered, finding himself at the mercy of both of them. Xiao Wu huffed, withdrawing her hand, then raised her chin high and walked towards her good friend. Wrong. Chen Xien was speechless. He could understand if Xiao Wu, his baby's mom, felt this way, but what was Zuqing's reason? After that, the two black-robed bishops gave impassioned speeches, marking the opening ceremony of the competition. When the formalities ended, Su Yuntao took the stage as the tournament's referee, announcing the start of the first round. Bibi Dong sat back lazily in her large chair, her legs crossed, watching the competition below with great interest. Chen Xien was puzzled. According to the competition rules, the Empress was only supposed to appear at the finals, so why had she come early? Most importantly, he felt as though she was watching him, glancing his way from time to time, making him feel very uncomfortable. Bibi Dong's figure was stunning, and her eyes were both beautiful and deep, holding a ruthlessness befitting an empress. Chen Xien felt that if she set her sights on someone, that person wouldn't escape unscathed. Feeling uneasy, he became certain that someone was watching him. It was Bibi Dong herself, exuding a faint malice. Thinking she was looking at Lu Erlong, her rival, he quickly sensed a strong hostility directed at him from Bibi Dong. Chen Xien couldn't bear it any longer and found an excuse to leave the arena. Flender, deeply engrossed in the competition, didn't notice. The Blazing Fire Academy's forfeit was indeed planned. They had teamed up with Kamikaze Academy to form a new Kamikaze team. This new Kamikaze team now had 7 spirit elders, their strength nearly matching that of the Heaven Do Royal Academy. Elsewhere, Chen Xien had already left the arena and returned to Spirit City, walking along the street. With nowhere specific to go, he intended to return to the hotel and study his system, having never had the chance to open his upgrade gift pack. He stopped suddenly, furrowing his brow as he glanced into a dark corner. Pretending not to notice, he kept walking down the street, taking a winding route back to the hotel. However, as he neared the hotel's manor, a shadowy figure appeared at a corner ahead, blocking his path. Chen Xien, the Empress wishes to see you. Come with me. Chen Xien from Shrek Academy, right? The Pope requests your presence. Come with me. A figure suddenly appeared around the corner, blocking the way. Who are you? Chen Xien frowned slightly, looking at the middle-aged man. It was a man dressed in black attire marked with the insignia of the Spirit Hall. His temples had some graying hair, making him look around 50 or 60 years old. Spirit Hall Deacon, Black Bishop. The middle-aged man clasped his hands behind him, speaking indifferently. Enough with the small talk, come with me. As long as you cooperate, His Holiness won't make things difficult for you. I don't believe you, Chen Xien replied, unmoved. Earlier, he had sensed something off in Bibi Dong's gaze, one that held hostility rather than the desire to recruit him. Don't be stubborn, kid. I admit you're talented, reaching the rank of Soul King at this age, comparable to the Golden Generation, but you're just a Soul King. I advise you not to act rashly. The Black Bishop paused and continued, rest assured, the Spirit Hall has no ill will toward you. His Holiness simply wants to ask you some questions. What questions? Chen Xien asked calmly while calculating an escape route in his mind. However, he quickly realized the difficulty. Spirit City was heavily guarded, with over a dozen tidal Douluo. Escaping here would be akin to climbing to the heavens. You'll know once you arrive. The Black Bishop, hands still clasped behind him, remained calm, showing no fear of Chen Xien's tricks. My patience is limited. Follow me. After a moment's thought, Chen Xien decided to follow. He wasn't one to sit idle and let others control him. The Black Bishop led the way, completely confident and unconcerned about Chen Xien escaping. It was clear he was confident in his abilities. If a young soul master could escape a soul Douluo, it would be laughable. Chen Xien followed at a steady pace, yet he wasn't resigned to his fate. Along the way, he discreetly dropped a kunao from his sleeve whenever the bishop was out of sight, hidden and unnoticed. Chen Xien was content with this, as the bishop's confidence worked in his favor. Since becoming a Soul King, the range of his teleportation technique, Flying Thunder God, had expanded to 600 meters. He strategically placed kunao at intervals, so if anything went wrong, he could teleport out instantly. After a while, the bishop led him to a palace, the current Pope's Hall. The palace was spacious and magnificently decorated, standing 100 meters tall like a spear pointing at the sky. The Black Bishop opened the 20 to 30 meter doors and led Chen Xien inside. Your Holiness, the one you requested has been brought. He bowed respectfully to the beautiful woman on the throne. Chen Xien looked over to see Bibi Dong, her long dress draping over her feet, slender figure, and her legs crossed as she leaned lazily on her chair. She looked toward the doorway with a slight smile, curiously examining Chen Xien. You may leave, Bibi Dong said, gesturing casually. Yes, Your Holiness. The Black Bishop bowed and left, closing the doors behind him. The spacious hall contained 3 others of notable status, known as the Golden Generation of the Spirit Hall, Hu Lina, Xiao Wu, and Yan. Hu Lina glanced at the door, her beautiful eyes narrowing in surprise. It's you, the little brother from the Spirit Beast Forest. Seeing this fox spirit, Chen Xien immediately wanted to leave. His experience in the Stardew Forest had left him with no good feelings toward this woman, who, despite being a lady, enjoyed teasing others. Nana, you know him. Xiao Wu was shocked. His sister had never been to the Heaven Do Empire, so how did she know this guy? Yan's expression grew darker, jealousy brewing. His gaze at Chen Xien was filled with hostility. Nana was his goddess, no man could lay a hand on her. This stranger, appearing out of nowhere, was highly suspicious. All right, the 3 of you may leave, Bibi Dong said, dismissing Hu Lina, Xiao Wu, and Yan. Chen Xien felt a sinking feeling, sensing something was wrong. The Pope had spoken, and the 3 had no choice but to head for the door. Little brother, you should come find me later, Hu Lina teased, licking her red lips and giving him a wink before leaving. Yan clenched his fist, his face cold, ready to teach Chen Xien a lesson under different circumstances. Chen Xien broke into a cold sweat, noticing a pink light fading from his forehead. Cunning fox, he muttered. He had just been attacked mentally, that woman had tried to charm him, just as she did in the Stardew Forest. With the 3 gone, leaving only Chen Xien and Bibi Dong in the lavish, but somewhat empty hall, Chen Xien grew more uneasy. Everyone had been dismissed, and she had left him alone. What could she be planning? He felt she was entirely capable of doing something crazy. Forcing himself to stay calm, Chen Xien asked, Your Holiness, what do you want with me? His body tensed, instinctively aware of the danger before him. Bibi Dong's expression was calm, her captivating gaze resting on him with a faint smile. Casually, she said, So, you don't know what you've done. Chen Xien was taken aback. What was she talking about? Bibi Dong continued to smile, but her eyes grew colder. If I have to spell it out for you, things will not end well. Chen Xien's heart skipped a beat, feeling both nervous and confused. He couldn't understand how his involvement in Yu Xiaogong's death could lead back to him. Neither Lu Erlong nor Flender had noticed anything, yet somehow Bibi Dong, who hadn't contacted Yu Xiaogang in 20 years, suspected him? Is she trying to trick me? Chen Xien wondered. Your Holiness, I've been at Shrek Academy the entire time, he responded, feigning ignorance. During that time, he had openly stayed at the academy, while an illusion of him, disguised as Tang San, committed the act. He trusted that the Pope, having suspected him, would have thoroughly investigated everything. Bibi Dong's expression remained cold and deep as she studied him in silence, trying to create tension. Chen Xien thought, maintaining a harmless expression. Indeed, he had guessed correctly. Bibi Dong had sent out investigators long before the Heaven Do army arrived, but they had no leads even now. Since Chen Xien had been at Shrek Academy on the day Yu Xiaogang was attacked, the timeline didn't align, ruling out his involvement. Typically, Bibi Dong would rather err on the side of caution, but Chen Xien was different. He was a talent recommended by Elder Chrysanthemum Douluo Yuguan multiple times. Additionally, intelligence from Qianrongxiu suggested that Chen Xien's loyalty leaned toward the Spirit Hall rather than the Heaven Do Empire. With this in mind, Bibi Dong sighed and withdrew her gaze. The Spirit Hall needed talented individuals, especially those with the potential to become titled Douluo. Very well. Come sit, she said casually. Chen Xien took a seat, observing the female pope, wondering what her intentions were. Without further ado, Bibi Dong stated plainly, Do you know that Elder Yuguan has recommended you multiple times, calling you a rare genius? Would you be interested in joining the Spirit Hall?